Chapter 396. Mo Shi used the Blood Dragon's eye to see the 1,500 spiritualists. He was secretly delighted. It seemed that the improvement of dragon will was not far away. Thinking of this, Mo Shi ordered the sea dragon clone to attract the attention of the werewolves and bloodbreeds again. He did the same thing and once again killed these spirit reader masters. Of course, these spiritualists quickly discovered Mo Shi. But so what if they discovered him? Firstly, they still needed to divert their attention to deal with the 1,000-meter-long sea dragon clone. Secondly, each time Mo Shi appeared, he would only appear for a second at most. Moreover, his position was constantly changing. One moment he was in the east, and the next moment he was in the west. It was difficult for them to truly grasp Mo Shi's true position while dealing with the sea dragon clone. Just like that, another 10 minutes passed. After killing another batch of spiritualists, a system prompt appeared in Mo Shi's mind: frowny face dragon will. 10001000. You can advance. Do you want to advance now? Mo Shi nodded. Advance. This advancement will take 5 minutes. During the advancement, you will not be able to use dragon will. The system reminded him. Mo Shi immediately entered his dragon cave. When he couldn't use dragon will, it was better to enter his dragon cave. This was safe and could cultivate dragon will. 5 minutes later, a system prompt appeared in Mo Shi's mind: frowny face dragon will advancement successful. Mo Shi looked at his attributes. Name, Mo Shi. Level 10 scavenger, level 6 long yen Shi. Evolution direction, Titan dragon. He had finally reached level 6 long yen Shi. Mo Shi's dragon will spread out. He could see everything within a 300-kilometer radius. He could clearly feel that the dragon will was much stronger than before. However, he still had to test how much stronger it was through battle. After leaving the dragon cave, he teleported and once again arrived on the battlefield. This time, he didn't use a sniper rifle or the mysterious ice devil slaying blade. Instead, he teleported not far away from a level 1 spiritualist. The level 1 psychic saw Mo Shi appear and then looked at Mo Shi's sea dragon avatar, which was still far away from him. Without hesitation, he sent all of his spiritual senses towards Mo Shi. Mo Shi also sent out his draconic will. However, he did not press down on his opponent. Instead, he cautiously wrapped his entire body. When the spiritual psyche master's spiritual psyche pressed down on Mo Shi's body, the enormous dragon psyche surrounding Mo Shi didn't move at all. The Long Yen Shi was shocked when he saw this. How did this guy's spiritual senses increase so much in just 5 minutes? This was illogical. Thinking of this, he hurriedly wanted to call the other spiritual psychics. However, at this moment, Mo Shi's draconic will moved. It was a direct counter-suppression. Almost instantly, the spiritual thoughts of the spiritual psyche master were suppressed back into his body. The spiritual psychic was pressured by Mo Shi's dragon's will. His eyes were bulging, his face was red, and his blood vessels were clearly visible. The next moment, bang! It directly exploded. This was the powerful effect of Mo Shi's draconic will leveling up. An increase in draconic will by 1 level was equivalent to an increase in Long Yen Shi by 2 levels. Therefore, Mo Shi's draconic will was equivalent to a level 2 spiritual psychic. And it was a level 2 peak spiritual psychic. Killing a mere level 1 spiritual psychic was naturally not a problem. Moreover, Mo Shi's draconic will killed the werewolf spiritual psychic at the cellular level. Therefore, he didn't even have a chance to heal himself. Phew! Mo Shi let out a long breath. Previously, these spiritual psychics were the greatest threat to him. But now, after the draconic will leveled up, the threat no longer existed. He took another look at his mind. He saw a display in his mind: frowny face draconic will 11000000. In other words, the next time the draconic will leveled up, he would need to kill 100,000 werewolf spiritual psychics. It seemed like a huge number. However, after Mo Shi's draconic will leveled up, killing these werewolf spiritual psychics was not a problem at all. At this moment, hundreds of werewolves and bloodbreeds around Mo Shi had already discovered him. They attacked him one after another. Mo Shi's draconic will moved. Bang 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 bang. All the werewolves and bloodbreeds felt an incomparably huge pressure on their bodies at that moment. Then, their bodies exploded into a cloud of blood mist. Following that, Mo Shi's draconic will spread out once again. It directly attacked the 10 spiritual psychics. With his current draconic will, it was impossible for him to kill 100 spiritual psychics in one go. However, he could still carry more than 1,000 spiritual psychics and kill 10 spiritual psychics in one go. The next moment. Bang 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 bang. The bodies of the 10 spiritual psychics also exploded into a cloud of blood mist. A notification came from his mind. Frowny face killed 10 level 1 spiritual psychics, obtained 10 strands of draconic will. Draconic will. 111000000. When the other spiritual psychics saw this, they were all shocked. They, spiritual psychics, were definitely the strongest existences on the entire Blood Wolf star. But now, in front of this kid, they were like paper. Thinking of this, all the more than 1,000 spiritual psychics used their spiritual psychics to communicate. Let's go together. With the spiritual psychics of more than 1,000 of us, I don't believe that we can't crush him to death. 3, 2, 1, go. Thus, the spiritual psychics of more than 1,000 people joined forces to form a huge mountain and pressed down on Mo Shi. However, under the pressure of more than 1,000 people's spiritual psychics, Mo Shi's draconic will only paused slightly. In the next moment, he used his draconic will to protect himself while pressing down on the 10 spiritual psychics. Bang 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 bang. Simple and crude. The 10 spiritual psychics and werewolves exploded into a cloud of blood mist again. In his mind, the system notification came again. Frowny face killed 10 level 1 spiritual psychics, obtained 10 strands of draconic will. Draconic will. 2110000. With the strength of one person, he was able to withstand more than 1,000 spiritual psychics and kill the 10 spiritual psychics on the spot. All the spiritual psyche masters present were aghast. This fellow's spiritual psychics were too strong. Just as they were shocked, Mo Shi's draconic will had already attacked once again. Bang 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 bang. Another 10 spiritual psychics were killed by him. Killed 10 level 1 spiritual psychics, obtained 10 strands of draconic will. Draconic will. 3110000. After killing 50 spiritual psychics in a row, the remaining spiritual psychics all panicked. He's too strong. Don't act rashly. Retreat a certain distance first and wait for reinforcements. A werewolf roared. The other werewolves and bloodbreeds also retreated, including those spiritual psychics. However, it was better if they didn't return. Once they retreated, their psychic power wouldn't be so uniform. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Mo Shi quickly used his telekinesis to suppress the 100 spiritual readers. Bang 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 bang. The 100 spiritual psychics also instantly exploded into a cloud of blood mist. Killed 100 level 1 spiritual psychics, obtained 100 strands of draconic will. Draconic will. 151100000. In a second, 100 strands of draconic will enter his account. This really made Mo Shi feel good in his heart. As a result, those spiritual psychics were even more chaotic. This way, it was even more convenient for Mo Shi. The draconic will pressed over again. Bang 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 bang. Minus 100 spiritual psychics exploded into a cloud of blood mist. Killed 100 level 1 spiritual psychics, obtained 100 strands of draconic will. Draconic will. 251100000. Chapter 397. When those werewolf spiritualists worked together, it wouldn't be so easy for Mo Shi to kill them. He could only kill 10 at a time. And when they were in a mess, it was much easier for Mo Shi to kill them. He could easily kill 100 of them. As for the other werewolves and vampires, they were terrified when they saw the strongest spiritualists among them exploding into a bloody mist. With the sea dragon clone around, they could only turn around and run away quickly. With a thought, Mo Shi ordered his sea dragon doppelganger to kill them all. Now, Mo Shi planned to raise his dragon will to level 7 as soon as possible. That way, he would be safer when facing these level 1 spiritualists. Therefore, he didn't have the time to deal with these ordinary werewolves and vampires. The sea dragon clone didn't hold back either. It opened its mouth and swallowed more than 50 werewolves. Mo Shi focused all his energy on dealing with these spiritualists. Each time, he could kill 100 spiritualists. The numbers in his mind were also constantly jumping. Dragon will. 351100000. Dragon will. 4511000000. Dragon Will. 5511000000. In the end, after killing this wave of spiritualists, his dragon will stopped at a number frowny-faced Dragon Will. 5551000000. Mo sure didn't pay any more attention to the remaining werewolves and vampires. He let the sea dragon clone destroy them all. At this moment, within a 5-kilometer radius, there was a layer of blood mist. Even the blood moon in the sky couldn't penetrate this layer of blood mist. Then, under his investigation, the third and fourth waves of attacks had arrived. These two waves combined, there were 13,000 spiritualists among them. Mo Shi's heart was bursting with joy. He wasn't afraid that there were too many spiritualists, but he was afraid that there weren't enough of them. He was still the same as before, lying in ambush in place, waiting for this large wave of vampires and zombies to arrive. These werewolves and vampires smelled the thick blood mist here. They also smelled the scent of werewolves and vampires. They quickly raised their vigilance. However, it was already too late. Bang 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 bang. Without any warning, the bodies of the 100 spiritualists suddenly exploded into 100 clouds of blood mist. At this moment, the rest of the werewolves and vampires finally understood where the blood mist came from. Alert! Be careful. However, their vigilance came a little too late. Bang 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 bang. Another 100 spiritual readers suddenly exploded into a bloody mist. Only then did the remaining 1,100 or so spiritual readers react. One by one, they condensed their spiritual senses and scanned the surroundings. Soon they discovered Mo Shi. Their spiritual senses pressed down on Mo Shi one after another. Instantly, an enormous pressure caused Mo Shi's dragon will to shrink rapidly. It wasn't that Mo Shi's draconic will wasn't strong enough, but that there were simply too many of them. The spiritual senses of 11,000 psychic trainers were no joke. However, it only reduced Mo Shi's spiritual sense fandom from 300 kilometers to 50 kilometers. It wouldn't be of any help to their current battle situation. In addition, at this moment, a huge creature that was 1,000 meters long suddenly appeared on the battlefield. With a sweep of its tail, it wiped out hundreds of vampires. This caused the scene to instantly become chaotic. Those spiritual readers also focused more of their attention on the huge creature that had suddenly appeared. After all, in their perception, this huge creature was much, much more dangerous than this human. And when their attention was on the sea dragon clone, Mo Shi's draconic will had already been activated again. 10 10 10. He continued to kill these spirit reader masters. In the beginning, these spiritual psyche masters relied on their numbers to constantly counterattack Mo Shi. But as time passed, they realized that they couldn't stop this spiritual reader at all. Moreover, their companions kept exploding one after another. This made every one of them tremble in fear. No one knew if they would be the next one. Just like that, Mo Shi killed more than 200 spiritual readers one by one. The other spiritual readers finally panicked. They couldn't stop this powerful spiritual reader at all. And this spiritual reader's target was very obvious. It was all the spiritual readers present. If they didn't escape, they would definitely die at the hands of this spiritual reader. Therefore, their only way out was to escape. And when they escaped, things would be even easier. Mo Shi's draconic will quickly spread out. Bang 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 bang. Minus 100 spiritual readers instantly exploded into a bloody mist. As a result, these spiritual psyche masters were frightened. Just now it was 10 by 10. This time, hundreds of them exploded. Then, no one knew if 1,000 would explode next. With this thought in mind, these spirit reader masters became even more flustered. They hurriedly scattered in all directions. Bang 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 bang. The more panicked they were, the faster they exploded. In addition, the sea dragon clone was constantly disturbing their minds. It could be said that Mo Shi had no difficulty in killing them now. After spending about 2 hours, Mo Shi had killed all of the 10,000 plus spiritual readers here. His draconic will had also reached 15,000. At the same time, in Tianlin City, Alpha Wolf Victor had also seen that several waves of werewolves had been killed by Mo Shi. His heart was filled with shock and anger. He thought that with so many werewolves and bloodbreeds, it wouldn't take much effort to capture a human. But he didn't expect that the werewolves would lose more than 100,000 werewolves and more than 16,000 werewolf spiritual readers. This human was actually so powerful. And that terrifying monster, with a sweep of its tail, hundreds of blood breeds died. Its huge mouth could swallow dozens of werewolves. Facing such a combination, the werewolves and blood breeds' advantage in numbers didn't have any effect at all. Preposterous! Preposterous! In his anger, he began to use his prophetic ability. Soon, an image appeared in his mind. At first, the image was just very blurry. But gradually, the image became clearer. He saw millions of blood breeds and millions of werewolves. So many blood breeds and werewolves surrounded that human in the center. There was no way out for him. In the end, his body swayed a few times and slowly fell to the ground. Seeing this, Wolf Victor couldn't help but feel happy. This image was enough. According to his many previous experiences, no matter how the process developed, the result was often the image he saw. In other words, this kid's ending was destined. Therefore, he immediately ordered all blood breeds and werewolves, rush to the target location at full speed. Kill that human if you don't know the price. The Blood Wolf planet's communication was relatively backward. But even so, within 5 hours, his order had already spread throughout the Blood Wolf planet. All werewolves, blood breeds, and humans received the same order. Kill that human at all costs. Chapter 398. No one would have thought of it. At this moment, the entire Blood Wolf star was carrying out a siege. Tens of millions of vampires and millions of werewolves were rushing to the same target location, intending to surround and kill the target. And this target was only a human. Of course, if they had to calculate more, their target was also that 1,000-meter-long monster. However, they were rushing to the target location, which was basically sending dragon thoughts to Mo Sure. Of course, as the number of werewolves and vampires increased, Mo Sure also had to change his strategy. He no longer rushed in and attacked with dragon thoughts. Instead, after killing 10 spirit readers, he teleported away. He went to another corner of the battlefield, teleported again, killed 10 people, and escaped again. This cycle repeated. As for those spirit readers, they couldn't figure out his location at all. In this way, it didn't seem like these people were going to surround and kill him. Instead, it seemed like they were being hunted by him alone. Of course, that Wolf Victor also knew about this situation. But at this moment, he no longer thought about anything else. The image in his mind had already become the basis for all his decisions and judgments. He didn't care about the process, as long as the final result was enough. Thus, during this process, Mo Sure's dragon thoughts continued to increase. According to Earth's time, more than 10 days had passed. And in these 10 days, Mo Sure didn't stop for a moment. He continued to kill these spirit reader masters. The entire battlefield, with a radius of more than 100 kilometers, had long been enveloped by a thick blood fog. In the blood fog, the visibility was less than 10 meters. Moreover, the range of the blood fog was still expanding. And in these 10 days, Mo Sure was killing werewolf spirit readers almost every minute. The continuous killing made the killing intent on his body become stronger and stronger. Finally, on the 10th day, this killing intent actually formed a substance around his body. This murderous aura was like a blood mist, lingering around him within 100 meters. And as long as he willed, this blood fog would instantly turn into thousands of blood-red sharp blades, mincing any creature within 100 meters into meat paste. Mo Sure's pupils also changed from the initial black to dark red, bright red, and blood red because of the continuous killing. At this moment, he no longer had any other thoughts in his mind. There was only one thought in his mind. Kill. At this point, he no longer cared about the blood breed, the werewolf, or the werewolf psychic master. In short, as long as it was something that his eyes could see and his dragon consciousness could detect, it would be his target. He wanted to kill them. He only wanted to kill. With such thoughts in mind, his mind was no longer as clear as before. At this moment, killing intent surged from his body. Behind him, a pair of blood-red wings spread out. His eyes were so red that they looked like they could bleed. He was like a demon king of slaughter. He did not know how long he had been killing for. He had no idea how many he had killed. Amidst this frenzied slaughter, a notification suddenly sounded in his mind. Dragon will has reached 100,000. You can advance. This reminder woke him up abruptly. He went straight into his dragon cave. The redness in his eyes slowly receded. The murderous aura on his body also slowly receded. He sat cross-legged in the dragon cave. He kept taking deep breaths. After more than 2 hours, his eyes finally regained their clarity. The murderous aura on his body had also been completely withdrawn. Only then did he speak in his mind. Advance. This advancement will take 5 minutes. Dragon will cannot be used during advancement. With the system's notification, the advancement began. During the advancement, Mo Sure recalled the state just now and felt a lingering fear. Even he was afraid of that state just now. He was on the verge of going berserk. If he continued to develop, he would definitely go berserk. At that time, he would probably become a demon king who only knew how to kill. It seemed that he had to be more careful in the future. Thinking about it, after the dragon will advanced again, he would have more control over his heart. At that time, it should not be so easy for him to go berserk again. A moment later, another notification sounded in his mind. Advancement successful. Name, Mo Sure. Level, Level 10 Scavenger, Level 7 Long Yen Sure. Evolution direction, Titan Dragon. He had finally advanced. There was no need to kill on such a large scale anymore. This made Mo Sure heave a sigh of relief. However, he did not go out immediately. Instead, he planned to wait. He would go out after his state of mind had completely calmed down. At the same time in the outside world, the millions of Blood Clan members and millions of werewolves were all very strange after Mo Sure suddenly disappeared. At first, they were all on high alert, worried that the kid would suddenly appear and attack them again. However, after a few hours, there was no movement at all. Did the kid suddenly disappear just like that? Hence, they started a carpet search around the area. In the end, at Assembly Point 3, they developed a clone of Mo Sure. Of course, they did not know that this was only Mo Sure's clone. They only knew that since their leader had asked them to kill this kid at all costs, they would do as they were told. However, this kid was really powerful, so they were very careful at first. However, after a few minutes, they realized that for some reason, this kid did not seem as scary as before. Only then did they swarm forward and cut down Mo Sure's clone. In Sky's Descent City, when the Alpha Wolf Victor saw this scene, he was instantly overjoyed. Sure enough, it was exactly the same as the scene in his mind. This kid was finally dead. He let out a long breath. He had always felt that he was the most powerful being on this planet. However, the terrifying degree of that kid just now made him feel that in front of this kid, he was afraid that he was not his opponent at all. Now that this kid was dead, everything was resolved. Then, the next step was to plan how to kill his way to the Flaming Land. Thinking of this, he began to gather the upper echelons of the werewolves, Blood Clan, and humans to discuss this matter together. 5 hours later. On the previous battlefield, amidst the thick blood mist, Yi Zichen looked at Yi Zichen. A figure quietly appeared. This person was none other than Mo Sure. His dragon's will had reached level 7, so his consciousness was quite clear. Although there was a thick blood fog around him, his consciousness did not waver at all. Mo Sure was secretly delighted. It seemed that he would not go crazy again. Using his dragon's will to investigate, he found that most of the Blood Clan and werewolves had already dispersed. However, within a radius of 350 kilometers, there were still dozens of small groups of Blood Clan and werewolves. Then, the next step was to collect the Titan Dragon's blood and work hard to become a desolate hunter. At the same time, in Sky's Descent City, the Alpha Wolf Victor was discussing with the upper echelons of the Blood Clan and werewolves on how to go to the Flaming Land. However, at this moment, an image suddenly appeared in his mind. Chapter 399. Usually, if the Alpha Wolf Victor didn't actively foresee the future, he wouldn't be able to see the future in his mind. But this time, when he was discussing something with the others, a scene suddenly appeared in his mind. The scene was somewhat blurry. It was like a mosaic of water monsters, flying saucers, and savages in any video. In the scene was a city. In this city, there were tens of thousands of human figures. It was just that it couldn't be seen clearly whether this figure was a vampire, a werewolf, or a human. At this moment, in the distant sky, a huge figure flew over. That huge figure was actually more than 100 meters long. Its body was more than 100 meters long, and it had huge wings that were nearly 100 meters wide. It glided toward the city. The people in the city continuously attacked this huge figure. However, no matter if it was arrows, spears or rocks, they couldn't cause any damage to this huge figure. When this huge figure flew over the city, it suddenly spat out a flame. The city instantly turned into a sea of fire. In the sea of fire, the creatures in the city roared, wailed, and rolled about. Just a flame was enough to turn the city into a purgatory. Then, that figure flapped its wings and flew into the sky again, swaggering away. Seeing this scene, the alpha wolf Victor couldn't help but tremble. Although the scene was mosaic and he couldn't see clearly what that huge black figure was. But from the bottom of his heart, he could feel how powerful that creature was. In front of that creature, even he felt that he was so small. Victor looked at the city outside the window and said to the werewolves and human higher-ups, "Retreat! Retreat! Everyone, retreat from Tianlin City." Those humans and vampires didn't know how powerful Victor's prophetic ability was. But all the werewolves knew how powerful their leader's prophetic ability was. In the past, their leader's every decision was absolutely correct. Therefore, they didn't have any doubts. They immediately got up and walked out, beginning to issue orders to the rest of the werewolves to retreat from the city. Seeing that almost all the werewolves had begun to retreat, the vampires hesitated for a few minutes and also began to give the order to retreat. As for those humans, the werewolves and vampires wouldn't care. Humans were too weak to be of much help in battle. Therefore, they didn't care whether humans lived or died. Within a short hour, the werewolves and vampires had all retreated from Skyfall City. The entire Sky's Descent City had returned to the hands of the humans in this short period of time. All the humans were dumbfounded. These werewolves and vampires had suddenly come and gone. Humans, on the other hand, knew nothing about it. Meanwhile, in the wilderness, Emosure was looking for a target. Although his fists were powerful, the werewolf's self-healing ability was too strong. His fists could not kill it. Therefore, he only had one target, the Bloodbreeds. Moments later, his Draconic will detected the locations of over 1,000 Bloodbreeds. Then, with a thought, he teleported into the midst of the Blood Descendants. The vampires were resting on the spot. Seeing Emosure's sudden appearance, everyone was taken aback. After all, the battle prowess Emosure had displayed earlier was simply too fearsome. Even the spiritualists among the werewolves had been hunted down by this fellow. Wouldn't it be a matter of minutes for the bloodlings like them? In fact, they did want to fight. After Emosure appeared, he threw a punch at a level 10 evolved vampire. Bang! That level 10 evolved vampire was unable to resist at all. His brain exploded into a bloody mist. Then, Emosure started punching and kicking. With every punch, he could blow up 1 or even 2 or 3 vampires' heads. If he was lucky, he could blow up 4 or 5 vampires' heads with a kick. Seeing this, the surrounding vampires swarmed forward, wanting to kill Emosure. However, when they swarmed over, Emosure only needed to slightly suppress them with his draconic will. Most of the vampires couldn't even move. Only a small group of vampires that Emosure had purposely left behind could move. However, these vampires couldn't move at all when they saw their companions. They were terrified and hurriedly turned to escape. But where could they escape to? Although they were fast, they were nothing in front of Emosure's draconic will. They were easily killed by Emosure's punches. After killing this small group of vampires, Emosure's draconic will let go of another small group of vampires. This group of vampires had some guts. They didn't run away. Instead, they took out all of their special skills and attacked Emosure. However, as long as Emosure teleported away, all of their moves would fall through. Under Emosure's violent suppression, this small group of vampires was all killed by Emosure in less than half a minute. Then, batch after batch of vampires were killed by Emosure. When the vampires in the distance saw Emosure's violence, they wanted to escape. However, under the pressure of Emosure's dragon sense, they felt as if they were being pressed down by 1,000 kilograms, unable to move. The werewolves who were resting nearby rushed over when they heard the news. When they saw Emosure slaughtering tens of thousands of werewolves on his own, they couldn't help but feel a little surprised. This human strength was terrifying. Although most of the werewolf spiritualists had been killed by Emosure, there were still some who escaped. At this moment, a werewolf spiritualist saw Emosure's violence and immediately spread out his draconic will. Lowly human, how dare you be so arrogant? Dang! In the blink of an eye, He sent his spiritual will towards Mo Shi. However, his action was noticed by Mo Shi. In the next moment, Mo Shi's enormous draconic will pressed down on his draconic will. The werewolf spiritualist felt Mo Shi's enormous telekinesis and was shocked. His draconic will was on a completely different level from this guy's telekinesis. This guy's telekinesis could almost crush him. He quickly retracted his draconic will to protect himself. However, in the next moment, bang! His body exploded into a bloody mist under Mo Shi's draconic will. His draconic will was only at level 1. Mo Shi's level 7 draconic will was equivalent to a level 4 spiritualist. Moreover, the quality of Mo Shi's draconic will was much better than that of a level 4 spiritualist. Even a level 4 spiritualist was nothing in front of Mo Shi. Moreover, this was only a level 1 spiritualist. After killing this level 1 spiritualist, Mo Shi continued to kill the vampires. As he continued to kill, he didn't dare to hear the system's notification in his mind. Killed a level 10 evolved blood breed. Obtained 10 drops of Titan dragon blood. Killed a level 10 evolved blood breed. Obtained 10 drops of Titan dragon blood. Chapter 400. Mo Shi spent more than half an hour to kill all the vampires here. Then, he flew toward another group of vampires. Another half an hour later, he slaughtered all the vampires. Just like that, Mo Shi slaughtered batch after batch of vampires. And these vampires couldn't do anything in front of the powerful Mo Shi. Their advantage in numbers was useless in front of Mo Shi. All the vampires within a few kilometers couldn't move at all under the suppression of the dragon will. After Mo Shi killed the dozen or so vampires, he continued to kill the other dozen or so vampires. Just like that, time passed minute by minute, second by second, and Mo Shi killed more and more werewolves. The amount of Titan dragon blood he consumed was also increasing. News of his strength and terror had spread throughout the entire Blood Wolf Star. That guy isn't human at all. He's too strong. Neither the werewolves nor the vampires can stop him. Why does he only kill vampires and not werewolves? Not really. He also kills werewolves. It's just that he only kills the spiritualists among the werewolves. This guy is a complete demon. The leader of the vampires had sent several groups of vampires to surround that guy. Last time, that guy had the help of that huge monster, so they couldn't do anything to him. This time, for some reason, that huge monster didn't appear. So, they thought that they could kill that guy with their advantage in numbers. However, reality proved that the leader of the vampires was wrong. That guy was really powerful. Just his telekinesis was enough to suppress the vampires around him. And he only released a few dozen vampires each time. Those vampires were no match for him at all and could only be killed instantly. Just like that, several waves of blood race encirclement ended in failure. The leader of the vampires had no choice but to look for the werewolf leader, Victor. Mr. Victor, the guy we were hunting before has appeared again. Victor frowned when he heard that. You still have that huge monster with you? The leader of the vampires shook his head. This time, for some reason, that huge monster didn't appear. But his strength seems to have increased. We sent over 100,000 vampires to encircle him. However, it was suppressed by his powerful telekinesis and could not move at all. In the end, the 200,000 vampires were all killed by him, one punch after another. Alpha Wolf Victor frowned when he heard that. His telekinesis is that strong? The leader of the kindred said, I'm here to ask Mr. Victor for help in dealing with that human. Alpha Wolf Victor pondered for a moment and shook his head. If he's really as strong as you say, then even we, the werewolves, can't do anything. The leader of the kindred laughed bitterly. I heard that there is a group of level 2 spiritualists hidden among the werewolves. If you are willing to let them fight, we will also send out all the level 10 psychic masters. If we work together, we should be able to subdue that kid. Victor stared at the vampire leader. You vampires are investigating us werewolves? The vampire leader said with a smile. Likewise. You werewolves have also been investigating us vampires. Alpha Wolf Victor laughed and did not dwell on this issue. The vampire leader continued speaking. Mr. Victor said that we should let go of our past grudges and work together against the enemy. That human is too strong. We must work together with the werewolves. Otherwise, if he really destroys the entire vampire race, who knows if his next target will be the werewolves. Victor, the werewolf leader, was silent for a moment and nodded. What you said is not without reason. That guy is an outsider. Naturally, we have to work together to deal with him. We will do as you said. We will send out our spiritualists and you will send out all your telekinesis. We must destroy that kid. Therefore, Victor sent out 500 of his spiritualists. The vampires sent out almost all of their level 10 psychokinesis. Although the probability of the vampires producing a psychic master was very low, they had a large population. Therefore, the total number of psychic masters reached 50,000. Then, these 500 spiritualists and 50,000 level 10 psychic masters rushed toward Mo Sher's location. However, as they were rushing to the battlefield, a figure suddenly appeared in front of them. This figure was none other than the werewolf leader, Victor. When the 500 werewolf spiritualists saw Victor, they naturally half-knelt and saluted him. When the 50,000 vampires saw the werewolf saluting, they hesitated for a moment and saluted as well. After all, they were working together now. If they did not salute the werewolf leader, there might be some hostility between them. Just as they lowered their heads to salute the werewolf leader, an enormous spiritual will suddenly enveloped all of the vampire psychic grandmasters. How could these vampire psychic masters be a match for the werewolf leader? Furthermore, they were caught off guard. They only felt that their psychokinesis was being sucked in by a huge force, and they couldn't help but be drawn toward the werewolf leader. Even if they used all of their methods, they could not stop their psychic powers from flowing away. They all turned pale with fright. Mr. Victor, what do you mean by this? Victor sneered. You vampires should not exist in this world. Take this opportunity to destroy all of the most powerful psychic masters in the vampire race. This is the right way. No, Mr. Victor. If we vampires are destroyed, you werewolves will not have it easy either. Victor sneered again. You don't have to worry about that. As he spoke, he increased the absorption rate. The psychic powers of all 50,000 level 10 psychic masters were absorbed by Victor. At this moment, his spiritual sense had finally increased by 1 level. He had reached level 3 psychic. Although the hunting ground master of the 10th hunting ground had limited the levels of the werewolves and vampires in this hunting ground, it had only limited their physical growth. However, it did not limit the growth of their psychic powers. This was because according to their previous experience, with the environment of the Blood Wolf planet, the probability of producing a psychic master was very small. Even if they did produce a psychic reader, a level 1 psychic reader would be their limit. Therefore, there was no need to spend so much effort to limit them. However, they never expected that a peerless genius would appear on the Blood Wolf planet. Victor. With his talent, he had raised his spiritual sense to level 2. After so many years, he had reached the peak of level 2. However, no matter how strong his talent was, the environment of this planet was like this. He could not raise his spiritual sense by even half a step. Therefore, he came up with this idea to absorb the psychic powers of all the level 10 psychic masters of the vampire race to help him become a level 3 psychic. Chapter 401. Although the leader of the blood race had always been wary of Victor, he would never have dreamed that Victor would suddenly stab him in the back in the face of a strong enemy. Even Victor's subordinates, the 500 or so level 2 spiritualists, did not think of this. Victor had now advanced to level 3 spiritualist. He looked at the 500 confused werewolves in front of him. He said loudly, "You don't have to be surprised. If we werewolves want to break through this hunting ground and go to the real flaming continent, we have to keep improving ourselves. However, this is not enough. Even if I take you to the flaming dawn continent, where there are as many experts as there are clouds, we will still be stones under their feet, stones that they can step on whenever they want. We will be meat on their chopping board. They will cut us if they want to. Therefore, we need to use all means to become even more powerful." The 500 level 2 werewolf spiritualists understood their leader's good intentions. They raised their right arms and said in unison, "Leader is wise." Victor nodded, then raised his head, stretched his arms and said passionately, "Now, tell me loudly. Do you want to be prey in the hunting ground and be hunted by the people of the flaming continent? Or do you want to be hunters and hunt the people of the flaming continent?" "Hunters! Hunters! Hunters!" All the werewolves shouted in unison. Victor continued to speak loudly. Do you want to trample the lowly humans of the flaming continent under your feet? Do you want to turn them around and treat them as prey? Yes. 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 All the werewolves' emotions were stirred up. Victor raised his arms. If you want to follow me to the flaming continent and be hunters there, then now is the time to start. Before he finished speaking, his powerful spiritual thought suddenly enveloped all the werewolves. In the next moment, his spiritual thought began to extract the spiritual thoughts of the werewolves. All the werewolves were shocked. By the time they realized what Victor was thinking, it was already too late. In that instant, a third of their spiritual senses had been extracted by Victor. Their spiritual thought decreased, while Victor's spiritual thought increased. Under such circumstances, there was not much they could do even if they wanted to resist. Moreover, they were controlled by Victor's spiritual thought. They could not escape even if they wanted to. Leader, why are you doing this? Leader, we have always been loyal to you. Why are you doing this to us? Chief, didn't we agree to go to the Flaming Dawn continent together? There was a sinister smile on Victor's face. He said, give me your spiritual sense, and you will be with me forever. Wherever I go, all of you will go as well. Before he finished speaking, he stopped explaining. He increased the strength of the extraction. In an instant, the spiritual thoughts of all 500 werewolves entered Victor's body. At the same time, Victor's spiritual sense had advanced once again, reaching level 4. Victor spread out his spiritual senses. Sensing that everything within a radius of several hundred kilometers was under his control, he couldn't help but look up at the sky and howl at the moon. Roar! All living beings within a radius of several hundred kilometers trembled under his long howl. This was the suppression of the laws of nature. On this planet, he was the absolute king. One of a kind. In fact, Victor had never thought about attacking the people of the Flaming Continent from the very beginning. He didn't even think about attacking Mo Shur. This was because he had already seen how strong Mo Shur's mutated dire beast was. Even if he was 10 times or 100 times stronger, he wouldn't be able to fight against that mutated dire beast. Therefore, he only took this opportunity to gather all the level 10 grand psychics of the blood race. He absorbed all of their psychic power. At the same time, he also took this opportunity to gather all the level 2 grand psychics of the werewolves for him to absorb. Now, his spiritual sense level had reached level 4. Only when his strength reached this level would he have a certain degree of confidence to travel on the Flaming Dawn continent. In other words, everything he had done before was so that he could leave this planet. He would go to the Flaming Dawn continent himself. From the moment he knew that Mo Shur had appeared, he had never treated Mo Shur as an enemy. Now, if necessary, he could even treat Mo Shur as a partner. At the same time, he also had a premonition that the huge black shadow he saw must be related to this guy. After thinking about it, he turned his head and walked in the direction of Mo Shur. At this moment, Mo Shur didn't know about all of this. He was still killing non-stop. This time, he felt that he was controlling it very well. Although he was killing non-stop, he was always guarding his heart. And every few hours, he would stop to take a breath. First, he had time to devour the Titan dragon's blood that he had just obtained. Second, he also calmed his state of mind so that he wouldn't be so violent. However, what he didn't know was that his eyes had started to turn red again. And the murderous aura on his body was slowly seeping out of his body. After killing for more than 2 hours, Mo Shur's eyes had become even redder. At this moment, he no longer thought about anything and just guarded his heart. He also stopped thinking about anything and paused to calm his state of mind. Unknowingly, he had already fallen into the same state of killing from before. There was only one thing he wanted to do. Kill. In his mind, there was only one word left. Kill. He wanted to kill until the sky turned dark. He wanted to kill until the sun and moon lost their light. He wanted to destroy this world. More than 2 hours later, Victor, who was rushing to Mo Shur's location. His spiritual senses had already detected Mo Shur. It was also at this moment that an image appeared in his mind. In the image, a long saber in Mo Shur's hand chopped down on his head. His body was instantly sealed in ice. In the next moment, it shattered into blood-red ice shards on the ground. Seeing this scene, Victor's body couldn't help but tremble. He subconsciously stopped in his tracks and looked in the direction of Mo Shur. He didn't dare to use his spiritual senses to investigate again. Instead, he turned around and ran in another direction. In his perception, that guy was in a fit of anger at this moment. Whoever went up to provoke him would be unlucky. Even if he didn't have any ill intentions, he would probably run straight into the muzzle of the gun if he went over. Therefore, the plan now was to stay far away from that guy first. In fact, with Mo Shi's dragon senses, he had already discovered Victor when Victor was investigating him. But now, there was only killing in his eyes. There were so many vampires in front of him, but he didn't want to go so far to kill a werewolf. He naturally wouldn't do such a thing. As time passed, the murderous aura around him became stronger and stronger. His eyes once again became as red as blood. There was only one thing he wanted to do now. Kill. Chapter 402. As time went by, Mo Shi's eyes grew redder and redder. The murderous aura around him grew thicker and thicker. At the same time, he was devouring more and more Titan dragon blood. He was getting closer and closer to a breakthrough. After a long time, the moon gradually set in the west. The sun rose in the east. According to the time on the Flaming Land, Mo Shi had been here for 2 months. According to the rules of the 10th hunting ground, the 500,000 yuan ticket could only stay here for 2 months. For every extra day he stayed here, he would be charged 10 times the price when he went back. Therefore, many people would return to Hunting Island number 10 if they needed to stay here for 2 months. They would purchase a new ticket before coming back. After all, the 10th hunting island wouldn't let you stay here indefinitely for 500,000 yuan. However, Mo Shi didn't have these thoughts at this time. There was only one thought in his mind. Kill. Naturally, he didn't go back. When the sun rose, on the 10th hunting island of the Flaming Land, the computers had already reported the people who hadn't returned yet. Among these people were those who died on the Blood Wolf Star. After careful investigation, they found that Mo Shi was the only one who was still alive among these people. Therefore, they quickly reported this to the teleportation hall. As long as Mo Shi teleported back, they would contact Mo Shi immediately and charge him a high fee. At this moment, more and more vampires and werewolves had gathered around Mo Shi, unaware of what had happened. Mo Shi didn't summon the Azure Dragon avatar and didn't use any energy. No matter how violent he was, he could only kill 4 or 5 people with 1 punch at most. It was far less visually impactful than killing dozens of spiritualists in an instant. Therefore, those vampires and werewolves thought that no matter how strong this guy was, he would run out of energy one day. They had millions of werewolves and vampires, and with their advantage in numbers, they would eventually kill this kid. However, in fact, Mo Shi kept drinking the Titan dragon blood, and his body was constantly being modified by it. Therefore, the power he possessed was far beyond the imagination of these werewolves and vampires. It was no exaggeration to say that Mo Shi could kill forever if he wanted to. Finally, with the passage of time, the sun set and the moon rose. The moon set again and the sun rose again. According to the Flame Origin Continent's time, Mo Shi had been here for 4 months and 5 days. At this moment, Mo Shi had gone completely berserk. His entire body was shrouded in killing intent. His eyes were so red that they looked like they could bleed. The blood wings on his back were so red that they looked like they could drip blood. Even the werewolves and vampires felt fear just by looking at Mo Shi. They had surrounded this guy for 2 nights and 1 day, but this guy didn't seem to be exhausted at all. He didn't look like a human at all, nor did he look like a vampire, nor did he look like a werewolf. Instead, he was a demon that only knew how to kill. The werewolves and vampires had exhausted almost all of their methods. But he couldn't kill this kid at all. This kid was like an undying demon god. After fighting for so long, the vampires and werewolves were already thinking of retreating. However, at this moment they were in a difficult position. Did they think they could stop fighting just because they wanted to? Would this guy let them go? Moreover, they had already paid such a huge price and lost so many of their compatriots. If they gave up now, wouldn't their compatriots have died in vain? Therefore, they could only continue to besiege him. At the same time, they were constantly thinking of a way. At the same time, Mo Shi was constantly killing and devouring the dragon's blood. His body had already touched that limit. And it was different from before. In the past, Mo Shi would stagnate when he reached the limit of level 10. He needed an opportunity to evolve. But this time, when Mo Shi touched this limit, His body began to heat up. And it was even hotter than before. He was going to evolve directly. There was no need for an opportunity at all. In other words, his current frenzied slaughter was an opportunity for him to evolve. However, even so, he still didn't stop killing. Because at this moment, there was only one thought in his mind. Kill. His body was extremely hot, but he didn't care. His blood was as hot as magma, but he didn't care. He only wanted to kill. After another 20 hours, at a certain moment, his body suddenly changed. The surface of his body began to be covered with a layer of black scales. His legs and arms turned into thick and powerful claws. On his body, on his back, the pair of blood dragon wings began to turn from red to black. However, they slowly condensed from illusory into substance. They formed a pair of black, wide wings. On the wings, a pair of extremely sharp claws shone with a chilling light under the sunlight. His head had changed as well. His face was also covered with black scales. Sharp thorns grew out of his head. He no longer looked like a human, but the head of a monster. A pair of eyes were as red as blood. Behind him, a tail full of sharp thorns grew out. As the shape of his entire body changed, his body was also changing. His body began to rapidly grow larger and longer. 10 meters, 20 meters, 40 meters, 60 meters. Finally, it stopped at 100 meters. At this moment, he had already transformed into a 100-meter-long dragon. Finally, Mo had evolved into a giant dragon. At the same time, a system prompt appeared in his mind: frowny face evolution successful. The system's voice finally made Mo, who had been unconscious for a long time, regain some rationality. For the first time in more than 3 months, he communicated with the system in his mind. Check level. Name, Mo. Race, human, bloodthirsty demon dragon. Level. Level 1 bloodthirsty demon dragon, Level 1 desolate hunter, Level 7 Long Yen Shi. Evolution path. Ancient demon dragon. When Mo saw this, he frowned. His consciousness also became a little clearer. Didn't you say that I was going to evolve into a titan dragon? The system's voice replied. Frowny face. During the evolution process, due to the host's continuous killing, his body was surrounded by killing intent, and his body mutated, so he evolved into a bloodthirsty demon dragon. What's the difference between a bloodthirsty demon dragon and a titan dragon? The dragon race is also divided into levels. A titan dragon is the lowest level existence among the dragon race. A bloodthirsty demon dragon is more than 1 level stronger than a titan dragon. Especially in terms of combat power, it is infinitely close to the war dragon race, which was born for battle. And it is easier for a bloodthirsty demon dragon to level up. As long as it keeps killing, it can increase its level and combat power. Mo frowned slightly. Do I have to walk the path of bloodthirsty killing? Chapter 403. The system continued to explain to Mo. The advantage of the bloodthirsty demon dragon is its strong combat power and easy evolution. However, the downside was also obvious. Once he became a bloodthirsty demon dragon, he would have to kill continuously to level up. It was also because of this that the bloodthirsty demon dragon became the enemy of the entire dragon clan tens of thousands of years ago. The moment the dragon race discovers the bloodthirsty demon dragon, they will do their best to kill it. That's why, unless absolutely necessary, it's best not to reveal your bloodthirsty demon dragon form in front of the dragons. When Mo heard this, he was filled with stubbornness. If that was the case, so what if he became the enemy of the entire dragon clan? If it was in the past, Mo would have thought to lay low for a while and develop. No one would dare to do anything to him after he was fully developed. But now, perhaps due to the continuous killings in the past few months, his state of mind was affected. Therefore, his idea was to kill whoever dared to provoke him. So what if he was from the dragon race? At this moment, the expressions of the surrounding vampires and werewolves changed drastically when they saw Mo transform into such a gigantic dragon. Although this giant dragon was not as large as the 1,000-meter-long monster that had appeared before, it was still very powerful. However, this dragon was brimming with murderous intent. A pair of blood-red eyes released a chilling murderous intent. It seemed that it was only interested in one thing: killing. These vampires and werewolves were barely able to muster enough energy to fight against the 1,000-meter-long monster. But in the face of this terrifying dragon, They didn't have the slightest intention to fight. Their only thought was to escape. Wuxia spread his wings and roared into the sky. A dragon roar filled with killing intent came from his mouth. Aoo! Roar! With a long howl, all the beasts were frightened. Within a radius of 100 kilometers, all living beings were trembling in fear. Wuxia stomped on the ground with his hind claws. The ground beneath his feet instantly cracked. With a flap of his wings, he leaped into the air. A pair of giant wings that were nearly 100 meters wide spread out. The pair of giant wings were not in perfect condition. Instead, there were holes of various sizes on them. This was the symbol of the bloodthirsty demon dragon. Ordinary dragons had strong self-healing abilities, so after their wings were injured, they would recover very quickly. However, due to the bloodthirsty demon dragon's excessive thirst for blood, certain aspects of their bodies were lacking. As a result, their wings were usually tattered and tattered. It was like a tattered bedsheet. However, this did not affect their ability to fly at all. Wuxia soared 10,000 meters into the sky. It made a circle in the sky, flying up and down, left and right. He was getting used to his body and his wings. When the bloodthirsty demon dragon was flying, it had two forms. One was in the normal state, where he could reach a speed of more than 300 meters per second. The other was to use energy to assist flight, which could reach up to 10,000 meters per second. Wuxia tried to switch between the two states, constantly changing his flying posture in the sky. Perhaps it was because the advancement of this major realm was different from what the system had planned. It was equivalent to not completing the mission given by the system, so there was no system reward. However, this body alone was much better than any other reward. On the ground, all the vampires and werewolves who were still trembling just now took advantage of the fact that this giant dragon was not paying attention to them and hurriedly fled in all directions. After Wuxia adapted to this body, he turned around and dived toward the ground. There were over 1 million vampires and werewolves gathered on the ground before. Now, it was not so easy for them to escape in a short period of time. Wuxia's flying speed in his normal state was 300 meters per second. However, when he dived, he was already infinitely close to the speed of sound. How could the werewolves and vampires on the ground escape? Wuxia swooped down as if covering the sky and the sun. His two hind claws scratched the ground. Dozens of vampires and werewolves were instantly clawed into meat paste by his claws. Screams of terror rang out in the surroundings. Then, Wuxia flapped his wings again. In their panic, the vampires quickly spread their demon wings and fled in all directions. Wuxia let out a dragon roar and opened his cave-like mouth. Boom! The scorching red flame dragon's breath shot out. Suddenly, a large area of the sky seemed to be reflected in a fiery red color. Within a radius of 1,000 meters, all the vampires who were fleeing were swallowed by the sea of fire. Then they screamed and fell from the sky. After they landed, they kept rolling in the fire, trying to extinguish the flames on their bodies. However, the red flame dragon's breath was not an ordinary flame. Not to mention rolling, even if you poured water on it, it would not be able to extinguish it in a short period of time. As a result, hundreds of vampires died just like that amidst the screams. At the same time, a number appeared in Wuxia's mind: frowny face kill points, 1100. It seemed that killing these level 10 werewolves and level 10 evolved vampires did not bring him any kill points. Wuxia dived a few more times, and the red flame dragon's breath continued to shoot out. The area within a radius of dozens of square kilometers became a sea of fire. In this sea of fire, screams and cries could be heard continuously. In the end, apart from a few vampires and werewolves who managed to escape, the 1 million vampires and werewolves here were all exterminated by Wuxia. A first-grade bloodthirsty demon dragon's combat power was probably comparable to a level 1 Grand Desolate Master. Most importantly, when the bloodthirsty demon dragon released its dragon's might, the low-level creatures below didn't even have the thought of running away. They could only watch as this terrifying dragon descended from the sky. However, even though he was constantly killing, Wuxia did not only have the thought of killing in his mind like before. His mind was still very clear. He constantly reminded himself that he could not fall into the same state as before. This was also a unique characteristic of the bloodthirsty demon dragon. Bloodthirsty demon dragons seemed to only know how to kill, but their minds were always clear. In this way, Wuxia would no longer be on the verge of going insane like before. In the end, After exterminating these 1 million vampires and werewolves, Mo Shi's kill points finally reached 100. He had also successfully advanced to a second-grade bloodthirsty demon dragon. At the same time, he discovered that his hunting level had also risen to a level 2 Desolate Master. Mo Shi couldn't help but feel a little happy. It seemed that the bloodthirsty demon dragon's level was related to the Desolate Master. When the bloodthirsty demon dragon leveled up, the Desolate Master's level would also increase. However, he did not know whether the bloodthirsty demon dragon's level would also increase if the Desolate Master's level increased. However, now that he had advanced to level 2, killing these vampires and werewolves would not give him many kill points. Moreover, if Mo Shi remembered correctly, it was almost time to go to the Ancient Dragon battlefield. There were no other restrictions on going to the Ancient Dragon battlefield apart from being a level 1 Desolate Master. However, the Ancient Dragon battlefield had a low tide every 10 years. It was safest to go during the low tide. Although Mo Shi had now advanced to a bloodthirsty demon dragon, he had never been to the Ancient Dragon battlefield and did not know much about it. Therefore, it was better to go during the low tide. Chapter 404. After Mo Shi became a bloodthirsty demon dragon, one of his skills had also been upgraded. The Blood Dragon's Eye had been upgraded to the Demon Dragon's Eye. In addition to all the previous abilities of the Blood Dragon's Eye, the Demon Dragon's Eye also had another ability: a special deterrent to infected creatures. When Mo Shi activated the Blood Dragon's Eye, the werewolves and bloodbreeds would not dare to move as long as he glanced at them. They would also obey Mo Shi's orders. This was the new ability of the Blood Demon's Eye. Next, Mo Shi's body quickly shrank with a thought. The scales, giant wings, long tail, and sharp claws on his body all disappeared. He returned to his human form. However, when he transformed into his dragon form, the clothes on his body were torn apart, and he was now naked. Fortunately, there was no one around. He had to take out another set of clothes from the miniature world and put it on. At the same time, he sighed in his heart. Transforming into a dragon was powerful, but it was a bit of a waste of clothes. Then, he went to the coordinates. Half an hour later, he had returned to the teleportation hall of the 10th Hunting Island. As soon as he appeared, 2 hunters from Hunting Island number 10 said to Mo Shi, "Brother Mo Shi, you're the leader of this hunting island." "Sir, according to the rules, each ticket can only stay on the 10th Hunting Island for 2 months. You've stayed on the 10th Hunting Island for 5 months and 3 days. If you exceed 2 months, you'll have to pay 10 times the amount. If you exceed 63 days, you'll have to pay 80,000 per day. After deducting the change, you'll have to pay 5 million. After Mo Shi became a bloodthirsty demon dragon, his vision had broadened a lot. His vision had far exceeded the flaming beginning continent. He was going to become an immemorial demon dragon in the future. Naturally, he would not care about such a small amount of money. Although the 10th Hunting Island was a bit too shady, they had already told him about it before going to the Bloodwolf Star, so it was not too bad. Most importantly, Mo Shi did not lack money. He nodded. "I'll pay now." The 2 hunters were stunned and looked at Mo Shi carefully. They thought that they would scare this guy when they said 5 million. They did not expect this guy to be so straightforward. It seemed that he was another rich young master. Thinking of this, a smile appeared on their faces. He hurriedly gestured towards Mo Shi. "Young master, this way please." One of them took Mo Shi to pay the bill while the other went to get the manager. In the face of such a rich young master, he had to inform the manager. Soon, the manager also walked over quickly. With a face full of smiles he said, "Young master, I am the manager of the 10th Hunting Ground. My surname is Ma. You can call me Xiao Ma. I'm sorry, but we have rules on Hunting Island 10, and we have to follow them. But we're all humans, and we have to be humane. Therefore, I can give you a 20% discount. Just give me 4 million. Mo Shi did not stand on ceremony and paid 4 million yuan directly. Then, he walked away with a smile on the manager's face. This was the benefit of being rich. If he didn't have the money, Mo Shi would probably have forced him to leave. With Mo Shi's strength, no one would be able to stop him if he wanted to leave. However, there would be a lot of trouble. Now that he paid directly, not only would it save him a lot of trouble, but this guy would also have to flatter him with a face full of smiles. Although Mo sure did not think that his words were true, everyone liked to hear good words. After all, it was good to be in a good mood. After leaving Hunting Island 10, Mo sure returned to Hunting Island 1. Only then did he take Emma and her son out of Micro World. When the people on Hunting Island 1 saw Mo sure, they could not help but feel a little surprised. Because at this moment, Mo sure seemed to have the faint domineering aura of a king. When they saw Mo sure, they could not help but have the urge to worship him. Happy also came out to welcome him. For the past 5 months, she had been missing Mo sure all the time. She missed him so much that she could not eat or sleep. She seemed to have lost a lot of weight. When she saw Mo sure, she no longer cared about being reserved. She quickly stepped forward and threw herself into Mo sure's arms. Leaning against Mo sure's broad and warm chest, she could no longer hold back the tears in her eyes. They flowed down her cheeks and wet the clothes on Mo sure's chest. She hugged Mo sure tightly as if she was afraid that Mo sure would leave again. Mo sure also hugged Happy tightly. This time, he had been very busy during the 5 months he was away. However, as long as he was free, Happy's figure and her smile would appear in his mind uncontrollably. Moreover, if he had Happy by his side, he would not have fallen into the endless slaughter so easily. When he felt Happy's heartbeat, he finally spoke. "From now on, I'll take you wherever Brother Mo goes." When Happy heard that, tears blurred her eyes once again. She nodded heavily. When the people around them saw that, they quietly dispersed. They left the time for Mo sure and Happy. There was no specific time for the opening of the ancient dragon battlefield, only a general area. Therefore, Mo sure did not need to be too anxious. He stayed on Hunting Island number 1 for a while longer. After evolving into a bloodthirsty demon dragon, he could completely control his state of mind and would not go berserk again. However, after 5 months of continuous slaughter, he needed some time to calm down. Otherwise, it would not be a good thing if his murderous aura was too strong. It might even endanger the people around him. Therefore, he stayed on Hunting Island number 1 for a whole month. During this month, he did not think or do anything. Every day, he just accompanied Happy, watched the sunrise and sunset, listened to the wind, and listened to the sound of the sea. In such peaceful days, Mo sure's state of mind gradually calmed down. The murderous aura in his body also lessened by a lot. At the same time, the Heavenly Gold sect, which was ranked first in the 16 prefectures of Serene Cloud. The Great Elder's most talented disciple had been on Hunting Island number 10 for 5 months. In fact, in the 3rd month, they had already sent people to the Blood Wolf Star to cause chaos. The Blood Breeds and the Werewolves were fighting. They thought that the disciple might have died in the war between the Werewolves and the Blood Breeds. No one could be blamed for this. Therefore, the matter came to an end. However, there was no such thing as an impenetrable wall in the world. There was a rich young master who stayed on Hunting Island number 10 for 5 months. After he returned, the news that he had paid a few millions slowly spread. At the same time, Mo sure planned to go to the ancient dragon battlefield after staying on Hunting Island number 1 for a month. To go to the ancient dragon battlefield, a wormhole teleportation device was required. Mo sure had already obtained this teleportation device a long time ago. Right now, he only needed to activate it. Of course, this time, he brought Happy with him. The two of them turned into bluish-white balls of light and disappeared from Hunting Island number 1. When they reappeared, the scene in front of them had changed. There was an undulating mountain range here. Mo sure used Dragon's Will to investigate. Within a radius of more than 300 kilometers, there were mountains of all sizes. Chapter 405. Mo sure used his Dragon's Will to investigate. Within a radius of hundreds of kilometers, there were mountains of all sizes. However, it was a little different from what Mo sure had imagined. In his imagination, the ancient dragon battlefield should be dilapidated, gloomy, and cold. But here, it was spring, flowers were blooming, and orioles were singing and swallows were dancing. It was a scene full of vitality. Seeing such a scene, Happy was naturally in a good mood. Mo sure was happy to see Happy, and he was also very happy. Mo sure took out the map of the ancient dragon battlefield and found that this was only the edge of the ancient dragon battlefield. The real ancient battlefield was still more than 300,000 kilometers to the west. He was not in a hurry to travel. He flapped his wings and flew forward slowly with Happy. He flew through the mountains full of wildflowers as if he was wandering in a painting. After flying for half a day, Mo saw that the sky was about to turn dark. He said in his mind, "System, sign in." Since he had come to the ancient dragon battlefield, Missouri did not want to go back in a short time. He wanted to go to every corner of the ancient dragon battlefield and sign in here. The system's voice immediately sounded in his mind. Frowny face. Sign in successful. Sign in location, periphery of the ancient dragon battlefield, 100,000 mountains. Sign in reward. 10 strands of dragon's will. 10 strands of dragon's will for each sign-in was not bad. Although it was a little less, this was only the periphery of the ancient dragon battlefield. The closer he got to the center of the ancient dragon battlefield, the more good things he would get. Gradually, the sun slowly set in the west. Mo planned to have dinner with Happy and rest on the spot. With Happy out this time, Mo did not have to bring any dry food. He only brought ingredients. Wouldn't it be better to let Happy cook? Mo took out the ingredients, and Happy began to get busy. Mo helped Happy by the side. But at this moment, a figure appeared more than 300 meters to the west of them. This figure looked a little like a deer, but it had a pair of small dragon-like wings. It could not fly, but it could jump very high. Mo could not recognize what kind of creature it was. However, he could detect that this creature had dragon's will. That's right, it wasn't psychokinesis or spiritual sense, but dragon sense. The creature hopped towards Mo and the others. At the same time, the dragon will in its body spread out and headed straight for Mo. Mo checked its draconic sense and found that it had already reached level 3. It was only a level 3 dragon psyche, yet it wanted to attack Mo. This was not something that Mo would take seriously. His draconic will immediately counterattacked and enveloped the creature. In the blink of an eye, the dragon will of this creature was devoured. The creature's body instantly shriveled up. After a while, it turned into a dried corpse. A system notification popped up in Mo's mind. Devoured level 3 dragon psyche. Obtained 3 strands of dragon psyche. Dragon psyche. 13100000. Devouring this fellow's dragon will would allow Mo to obtain 3 strands of dragon will. That made Mo delighted. If there were more of these creatures, wouldn't his dragon will level up again? Just as he was thinking about this, another creature appeared more than 500 meters away. This creature also had a level 3 dragon will. However, it didn't look like the previous creature. Instead, it looked more like a walking tree. The tree was more than 10 meters tall, its branches swaying constantly as it shuttled through the forest. Although it didn't have eyes, its huge body didn't touch any other branches when it shuttled through the forest. It was very strange. At the same time, its dragon will also attacked Mo. However, it was almost instantly devoured by Mo. The body of the tree was also shrinking rapidly. After a while, it turned into a dried-up tree stump that was only about 3 meters tall. Another system notification popped up in Mo's mind. Level 3 Draconic Sense devoured. Mo has 3 strands of Draconic Sense. Draconic Sense 16100000. Following that, Mo devoured a few ladybug monsters, a few monsters that looked like wildflowers, and even a rock monster. In short, these monsters came in all shapes and sizes. Mo plundered the memories of these monsters and looked carefully. He found that these monsters' memories were very messy. Many of the monsters' memories were just simple scenes. However, Mo had plundered many of these monsters' memories and finally understood why there were so many of these strange monsters. It turned out that on the ancient dragon battlefield, the Long Nian or Long Nian who died among the dragons would slowly disintegrate with the passage of time if they didn't have any special obsession. They would disintegrate into countless fragments. These fragments of draconic sense would unconsciously attach themselves to various other things. In the end, these things attached to the fragments of draconic sense would become all kinds of monsters. Most people thought that the ancient dragon battlefield was very dangerous. Even the periphery was very dangerous because they couldn't deal with these monsters. These monsters were not afraid of energy attacks or physical attacks. Only mental attacks could restrain them. However, their telekinesis was too strong. Those psychic masters would also have their telekinesis stolen under their mental attacks. Just this point alone was enough to scare off many people. Only those who were close to level 10 desolate hunters dared to wander around the ancient dragon battlefield at night. Those who only had the strength of a level 1 desolate hunter could only find a place to hide at night as soon as possible. Furthermore, if something went wrong and they were discovered, they would be killed by these monsters. Therefore, most level 1 desolate hunters didn't dare to enter the ancient dragon battlefield. In just one night, more than 300 level 3 monsters had appeared. This also made Mo Shi's draconic sense reach more than 900. As these monsters were still some distance away, Mo Shi killed them. Therefore, he didn't know that the forest was so dangerous at night. The next morning, they continued to fly west. It took them more than 5 days to reach the real entrance of the ancient dragon battlefield. At this time, Mo Shi's draconic sense had reached more than 4,700. The real entrance of the ancient dragon battlefield was guarded by Heavenly Gold Sect disciples. These Heavenly Gold Sect disciples were all level 5 desolate hunters. They guarded the entrance so that only Heavenly Gold Sect disciples or those who were related to the Heavenly Gold Sect could enter. At this time, they were discussing something. Hey, have you heard? Senior Bufan might not have been killed by the Blood Clan or the werewolves, but by someone from the Flaming Continent. Someone from the same batch as him who entered the 10th hunting ground. That's impossible. Who would be so bold as to kill a disciple of the Heavenly Gold Sect? Even in the entire Flaming Continent, there aren't many forces who would dare to kill an important disciple of the Heavenly Gold Sect. Another disciple shook his head. There are always exceptions. According to the information I received. At this point, the disciple paused. The other disciples were intrigued and asked anxiously, "Tell me. Why don't you tell me?" The disciple shook his head. It's useless. The cliff cutter dog won't show mercy. Chapter 406. The Sky Gold Sect disciples were discussing among themselves. You said that someone dared to kill senior brother Bufan. Is that true? Of course it's true. Initially, everyone thought that they were killed by the Blood Clan and werewolves from the 10th hunting ground. However, a month ago, a fellow who went to the 10th hunting ground at the same time as senior brother Bufan actually returned from the 10th hunting ground after disappearing for 5 months. Our sect's Grand Elder has already gone to the 10th hunting ground to get information on that guy, and check if he's suspected of harming senior brother Bufan. When the others heard this, they all came to a sudden realization. I knew it. Senior brother Bufan is a level 10 hunter and has a level 10 psychic master by his side. Moreover, he has many life-saving trump cards. How could he be killed by the Blood Clan and werewolves? If they really find out, that guy is dead. Not just him. Even his sect and family won't be able to escape. After all, senior brother Bufan is the Grand Elder's most valued disciple. Senior brother Bufan is the Grand Elder's most valued disciple. Even if an ordinary Sky Gold Sect disciple was killed, we won't let the murderer off. If it was in the past, Mo Shi would be worried when he heard these people's discussions. But now, when Mo Shi heard their discussion, he was actually looking forward to it. He was surprised. What was he looking forward to? Was he looking forward to a big fight with the Sky Gold Sect after they found out that he was the culprit? After a while, he found the reason for his anticipation. He was looking forward to only one thing. Killing. There were hundreds of thousands of Sky Gold Sect disciples. Among them, there were also thousands of disciples who were desolate hunters. He should be looking forward to killing these Sky Gold Sect disciples. This should be the change in his personality after evolving into the bloodthirsty demon dragon. The bloodthirsty demon dragon's first thought when encountering any trouble was to kill. Killing to solve any problem was the bloodthirsty demon dragon's code of conduct. Although Mo Shi wasn't a real bloodthirsty demon dragon, he had more of a human nature. However, he still couldn't help but think of killing when encountering problems. It was just that Mo Shi had more of a human's rationality. Liking to kill was one thing, but being able to kill at this stage was another. Before they found out that it was him, he had to develop first. It wouldn't be too late to fight and kill when they found out that he was the one who did it. As he thought about it, Mo Shi brought him to the entrance. The Heavenly Gold Sect disciples all turned their heads when they saw someone approaching. Their first glance was, of course, directed at the woman. There was nothing strange about this. Any man who saw a man and a woman walking over at the same time would immediately pay attention to the woman. This is the nature of man as an animal. Of course, she could not rule out the fact that some men just like to look at other men. The Heavenly Gold Sect disciples' eyes lit up when they saw Happy. He couldn't help but take a few more glances. This girl was very beautiful, but she wasn't like those goddesses that made people flinch. She wanted to be the opposite, but she was like the sister next door, giving people a sense of closeness. Compared to this girl, the so-called beauties of the Heavenly Gold Sect paled in comparison. Most importantly, however, the Heavenly Gold Sect prided itself on being a righteous sect. Therefore they were very strict with their disciples, at least on the surface. Therefore, they only took a few more glances and didn't have any other thoughts. Then they looked at Mo Sure. They were mostly surprised by Mo Sure and Happy's actions. Behind them was the main entrance to the ancient dragon battlefield. Only those who were desolate hunters and above could enter. Could it be that these two people had become desolate hunters at such a young age? If that was the case, wouldn't this person be very talented? At this time, Mo Sure was also secretly sizing up these people. In fact, he wasn't really sizing them up. Instead, he was sizing up the Heavenly Gold Sect that they represented. He wanted to see what the Heavenly Gold Sect was like from these people. Actually, the ancient dragon battlefield was discovered by the old senior from Yuzhou more than 500 years ago. Then, he set up a seal on the ancient dragon battlefield. Only those who were desolate hunters and above could enter. After that, he didn't hide anything. Instead, he announced the location of the ancient dragon battlefield and the method to enter. He also created some teleportation devices to the ancient dragon battlefield. It could be said that the old senior was absolutely selfless. However, as more and more people came to the ancient dragon battlefield, the ancient dragon battlefield was gradually occupied by the Heavenly Gold Sect. Not only did the Heavenly Gold Sect occupy the ancient dragon battlefield, but they also didn't allow people from other sects to enter. They treated the entire ancient dragon battlefield as their private property. Moreover, they even came up with a dignified reason. Many naive cultivators really thought that the Heavenly Gold Sect was thinking about the cultivators of the 16 prefectures and didn't allow others to enter. However, anyone with a discerning eye knew that the Heavenly Gold Sect was occupying the ancient dragon battlefield for themselves. As Mo Sure thought of this, he had already arrived in front of the Heavenly Gold Sect disciples. The Heavenly Gold Sect disciples stretched out their hands to stop Mo Sure. The Heavenly Gold Sect has already said that no one is allowed to enter the ancient dragon battlefield without permission. Don't you know? Mo Sure sneered and was about to retaliate. However, at this moment, a figure suddenly appeared in the distant sky. His speed was so fast that it exceeded Mo Sure's imagination. He was just at the horizon a moment ago, but in the blink of an eye, he was already in front of him. He wasn't using flying hovershoes, but was standing on a 5-meter-long, extremely high-tech giant sword. When he landed, the temperature within a few kilometers seemed to have dropped by more than 10 degrees. Mo Sure didn't even need to see his face to know who he was. Han Jianxing, who froze the 16 prefectures with a single sword. In the entire 16 prefectures, he was probably the only one who used such a giant sword as a flying machine. The Heavenly Gold Sect disciples naturally knew about Han Jianxing's reputation. They couldn't possibly not recognize Han Jianxing's giant sword. They hurriedly cupped their fists and bowed to Han Jianxing. Senior Han. Even though they were the #1 sect in the 16 prefectures, they didn't dare to rashly offend Han Jianxing. Although their sect also had great desolate hunters in charge. However, the reputation of freezing the 16 prefectures with a single sword wasn't to be taken lightly. Back when Han Jianxing had destroyed the 17 sects, there had been a total of 32 great desolate hunters in those sections. In the end, they had all been wiped out by Han Jianxing. Therefore, in the 16 prefectures, the upper echelons of every sect would warn their disciples that they could offend anyone except Han Jianxing. Han Jianxing ignored the Heavenly Gold Sect disciples. Instead, he turned his head and glanced at Mo Sure. His mouth, which was covered by his beard, spat out a few words. Level 2 Desolate Hunter. Chapter 407. Han Jianxing's mustache covered his mouth as he spat out a few words. Level 2 Desolate Hunter? Although he didn't show any emotions on his face, he was still a little surprised. The last time he saw Mo Sure, Mo Sure was only a level 5 Desolate Hunter. In just half a year, he had already become a level 2 Desolate Hunter. This speed could be considered heaven-defying. However, Han Jianxing was just a little surprised. He was also a prodigy and had seen all sorts of situations. Before his wife was killed, he was also a monster who could rise several levels in a year. However, after taking revenge for his wife, he didn't have the heart to continue cultivating. Therefore, his strength had been stagnant all these years. However, even if he didn't cultivate much, his strength had slowly risen from a level 1 Great Desolate Hunter to a level 2 Great Desolate Hunter. Many people couldn't reach the level of a Great Desolate Hunter, even if they worked hard for their whole lives. Many Great Desolate Hunters didn't cultivate much, but they could rise by 1 level in 10 years. This showed the importance of talent. If he worked harder, he would probably be a level 7 or 8 Great Desolate Hunter. In another 10 years, he would be at the top of the continent. However, this wasn't what he wanted. Mo Sure nodded to Han Jianxing. Yes. I just advanced. Han Jianxing nodded slightly. Ignoring Mo Sure, he turned around and entered the ancient dragon battlefield. Stepping on his giant sword, he quickly disappeared from the ancient dragon battlefield. After Han Jianxing was completely gone, the Heavenly Gold Sect disciples turned around and looked at Mo Sure. However, when they looked at Mo Sure, their attitudes had undergone a 180-degree change. Little brother, you know Senior Han? Mo Sure nodded. Yes. The Heavenly Gold Sect disciples looked at each other and cupped their hands to Mo Sure. Little brother, sorry about just now. If we knew you knew Senior Han, we wouldn't have stopped you. If you want to go to the ancient dragon battlefield, you can go any time. Mo Sure sneered in his heart. These so-called righteous sects bullied the weak and feared the strong, and curried favor with those in power. However, he couldn't be bothered to care about this now. With Happy in tow, he walked straight into the great dragon's ancient battlefield. Behind him, the Heavenly Gold Sect disciples continued to speak. Little brother, it's very dangerous inside. You must be careful. Especially the north. You can't go there. Mo Sure's heart skipped a beat. He had seen the map of the ancient dragon battlefield before. Almost every place in the entire ancient dragon battlefield was clearly marked on the map. There were also signs indicating what dangers there might be. However, there was only the north side. There was no topography drawn, nor was there any indication of the dangers there. There were only 4 words written on it. Not confirmed yet. It seemed that there was indeed something in the north. Mo Sure had already plundered the memories of the Heavenly Gold Sect disciples. However, the disciples of the Heavenly Gold Sect could not recall what was in the north. Obviously, they didn't know either. Mo Sure could only stay away from the north for the time being. According to the map, the ancient dragon battlefield was divided into 5 zones according to the danger level. Zone 1 was the least dangerous zone, while Zone 5 was the most dangerous zone. The area of the 5th district was the entire northern region. Based on Mo Sure's character in the past, he would definitely go to Zone 1, which was the least dangerous zone. But now that Mo Sure had evolved into a bloodthirsty demonic dragon, he wasn't as cautious as before. Hence, he was more adventurous. He even looked forward to the adventure. Hence, he did not go to Zone 1, which was the least dangerous zone. Instead, he went straight to Zone 2, which was the closest to him. According to the map, Zone 2 should be one of the battlefields during the Great Ancient Dragon War. Since it was more dangerous here, Mo Sure let Happy enter the micro-world first. Then he flapped his wings and arrived at Zone 2. It was the ruins of a huge city. It could be vaguely seen that this city used to be extremely large. It probably occupied an area of hundreds of square kilometers. Moreover, the buildings in the city were all tall and large. Obviously, this was not a city for humans to live in. Mo Sure guessed that it might have been built by the ancient dragon race to live in this city. However, this huge city was completely destroyed during the war. Now, only ruins were left, and green vines were crawling all over them. On the surface, there was nothing here other than broken boulders, collapsed stone pillars, and collapsed stone walls. However, over the past few hundred years, many people had obtained useful things from the ancient dragon battlefield. For example, dragon scales that could be used to forge armor. Dragon teeth and dragon claws that could be used to forge weapons. There were even people who obtained sealed dragon blood and used it to modify their bloodline, increasing their realm and combat strength in an extremely short period of time. Mo Shi's dragons will spread out and carefully investigated the area with a radius of 350 kilometers. However, he did not find anything. Mo Shi was not discouraged at all. What he cared about was not these things. As long as he came here to sign in, he would be able to obtain a lot of good things. System, sign in. In his mind, the system's voice immediately replied frowny face sign in successful. Sign in location, Ancient Dragon Battlefield Zone 2. Sign in reward, Dragon Slaying Saber. Pfft. Mo Shi almost spat out. Even the Dragon Slaying Saber came out? System, do you want to give me another heavenly sword? However, speaking of the Dragon Slaying Saber, Mo Shi's mind immediately conjured up a scene of him wearing a set of dazzling armor, carrying a dazzling golden saber on his shoulder, and a pair of incomparably gorgeous wings on his back. At the same time, there was a hidden message. As soon as you go online, you will be given a dragon slaying saber. 1/ for 99999999999, and each slash will drop a piece of top-grade equipment. Mo Shi couldn't help but smile. Then, he checked the system backpack. Then he saw a saber. However, this saber was not golden or shiny. It looked like an ordinary saber. There were no decorations or patterns. Even the handle of the saber was wrapped in black cloth. It felt like the pig slaughtering knife that Mo Shi had seen in the village when he was young. However, this saber had one characteristic, and that was that it was big. The saber was more than 2 meters long. It was about a foot wide. If it was an ordinary person, it would probably be difficult for them to pick it up. Using such a saber, it was naturally impossible to have an infinite number of slashes and drop godly equipment with each slash. On the saber, there were the attributes of the saber frowny-faced dragon-slaying saber, forged by the cold body of the demon's den, soaked in the egg liquid of the dragon-devouring worm. It can cause huge damage to the body of the dragon race, the energy body of the dragon race, and the soul of the dragon race. Mo Shi looked at these 2 lines of words and was secretly surprised. Not only could this dragon-slaying saber hurt the body of the dragon race, but it could also cause huge damage to the energy body of the dragon race and the soul of the dragon race. This was awesome. Chapter 408. The dragon-slaying saber was awesome, but Mo Shi felt that things were developing in a strange direction. He was a dragon, but the system gave him a dragon-slaying saber. Did he have to kill himself? Forget it, he would keep the dragon-slaying saber first. Then, Mo Shi continued to fly forward. During the day, there seemed to be nothing in the ancient dragon battlefield other than the ruins of the ancient city and the green vines. However, Mo Shi guessed that there might be monsters like the ones in the forest outside at night. After searching for more than half an hour, Mo Shi finally found a few people. They should be from the Skygold sect, Skywood sect, and Heavenly Water sect. Although the Skygold sect occupied the ancient dragon battlefield, the Skywood sect and Heavenly Water sect were from the same sect as the Skygold sect. Therefore, the disciples of these 2 sects could enter and leave the ancient dragon battlefield as they wished. At this moment, the disciples of the 3 sects were walking and stopping. They looked around from time to time or used their dragon psyche to investigate. They seemed to be looking for something. Mo Shi casually plundered the memories of a few of them and quickly understood what was going on. These people were looking for a wild beast called the Spirit-Engulfing Beast. The Spirit-Engulfing Beast loved to devour souls that were already dead but had yet to dissipate their psyche. The disciples of the 3 sects found a cave in the 2nd zone. Using their psyche, they discovered that there might be some good things left behind by the ancient dragon era. However, there were also powerful dragon spirits inside, which were the souls of the dragon clan guarding it. There was a level 2 spiritual psyche master with them. However, the spiritual psyche master's psyche was slightly weaker than the dragon spirits. Therefore, they seemed to be looking for the spirit-engulfing beast to suppress the dragon spirits. Therefore, they planned to capture a spirit-engulfing beast to deal with the dragon spirits in the cave. Mo Shi had planned to go to the cave directly to look for the dragon spirits. If he devoured the dragon spirits, his spiritual psyche would increase again. However, he also wanted to see what the spirit-engulfing beast was. Therefore, he stopped and waited for the spirit-engulfing beast to appear. About 5 hours later, one of the spiritualists suddenly whispered, the soul-devouring beasts have appeared. Everyone, hide. The rest of them were hiding in the surrounding ruins. A moment later, a small thing about 30 centimeters long appeared. When Mo Shi saw this little thing, he was speechless. What the hell was this spirit-devouring beast? Wasn't it just a cat? It was a cat covered in black fur. From head to toe, there wasn't a single strand of stray hair. Under the sunlight, its black fur exuded a black luster, like black brocade. It looked around for a moment, then continued to jump forward. Its speed didn't seem to be fast, no different from an ordinary stray cat. Mo Shi activated the blood dragon's eye and looked over. Species, spirit-devouring beast. Level 1 mutated dire beast. Ability, devour spirit bodies, extremely effective against spirit bodies. It was indeed a spirit-devouring beast. This was very different from what Mo Shi had imagined. At this moment, the spirit-engulfing beast didn't seem to know that there was danger nearby. It was like a lazy cat that had just eaten and was about to go bask in the sun. Step by step it slowly approached. Just as it entered the encirclement, the heavenly gold sect disciples pounced at it at the same time. Each of them threw a large net at the spirit-engulfing beast. However, at this moment, the spirit-engulfing beast suddenly rolled to the side like a lazy donkey. It dodged the attacks of the few people. Then, it suddenly turned around and dug up a handful of sand with its back claws. The few people behind it were about to chase after it, but they were stopped by the sand. They all cursed. What a cunning beast! As they spoke, they continued to chase after the spirit-engulfing beast. The spirit-engulfing beast leaped past another level 5 desolate hunter and extended its right claw. Whoosh! It left 3 deep claw marks on the level 5 desolate hunter's face. Each mark was so deep that bone could be seen. Then, the spirit-engulfing beast turned into a black shadow and leaped away. It was a stark contrast to its lazy behavior just now. Mo Shi couldn't help but be surprised by the spirit-engulfing beast's reaction speed. This little thing looked like a cat, but its reaction speed was much faster than a cat's. The few people who had surrounded it were all level 5 desolate hunters. However, the spirit-engulfing beast had managed to escape. The desolate hunter whose claw was scratched covered the deep wound on his face and wiped the blood off his face. He was furious and cursed. "Damn it, I'm going to kill you." As he spoke, he condensed an energy weapon. Whoosh! A thick red and white beam of light shot out from the desolate hunter's energy weapon. Boom! A huge crater with a diameter of more than 10 meters appeared in front of the spirit-engulfing beast. The spirit-engulfing beast was shocked and quickly fled in another direction. Seeing this, the rest of the people quickly advised, "Are you crazy? We're here to catch it, not kill it. If you kill it, how are we going to go to the catacombs?" The desolate hunter seemed to be an impatient person. He cursed, "I've had enough. If we don't kill it, it's going to kill us all. We've been here for more than 20 days to catch this beast. Even if I kill it today, I won't let it escape." As he spoke, he attacked the spirit-engulfing beast again. Whoosh, boom! A huge crater appeared where the spirit-engulfing beast was. However, the spirit-engulfing beast jumped away again. The desolate hunter seemed to have gone crazy. "Damn it, die!" Boom, 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 boom. Beams of energy shot out continuously. Huge craters appeared one after another. The spirit-engulfing beast seemed to have nowhere to run. It could only run forward. It ran a big circle around the desolate hunters. The desolate hunter, on the other hand, used his energy to create a big circle. This large circle of craters was connected together. From the air, it looked like a string of pearls strung together. It was at this moment. Boom! The ground suddenly shook. To be precise, the ground inside the string of pearls was shaking. Then, boom! Suddenly, a 20-meter-tall magma pillar spurted out of a large crater. Then, pillars of magma spewed out from the rest of the pits as well. Boom, 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 boom. There were more than 50 lava pillars surrounding the desolate hunters. It was as if there were more than 50 fountains surrounding the desolate hunters. However, these fountains were not spewing water. Instead, they were spewing hot lava pillars. Moreover, the lava pillars were getting thicker with every passing second. At first, it was only about a meter tall. In just 3 seconds, it had grown to more than 5 meters thick. The desolate hunters who were surrounded by the lava pillars were shocked. Chapter 409. The pillars of fire around them shot up dozens of meters high and became thicker and thicker. The scorching hot lava fell to the ground. The hunters' faces changed drastically when they saw this. He hurriedly condensed an energy light shield to block the falling lava. But at that moment, as the pillars of fire grew thicker and thicker, the ground in the center began to shake and collapse. Those people hurriedly tried to fly in all directions. But when they looked up, they saw that the pillars of fire around them had joined together to form a circular wall of fire that completely surrounded them. The ground continued to collapse. Below them was the boiling lava. There was also a large amount of lava falling from above. There was no way for them to escape. Finally, after a series of screams, the ground under their feet completely collapsed. They had already activated their hoverboards. However, the scorching lava that kept falling from the sky kept smashing down on their energy shields. Although the defensive power of their energy shields wasn't bad, under the intense heat, their energy consumption was also extremely fast. Soon, their energy shields became thinner and thinner. Finally they cracked and shattered. The four of them were smashed into the lava below by the lava that fell from above their heads. They died without a complete corpse. Not even a speck of dust remained. After doing all this, the spirit-devouring beast stuck out its tongue and licked its paws. Then, it used its paws to wash its face. Then, it continued to move forward leisurely. Wuxia was astonished when he saw this. This spirit-devouring beast was really smart. It was only a level 2 mutated dire beast, but it had relied on its understanding of the terrain and its cunning to kill the 4 level 5 hunters. It was rare to see such a smart mutant wild beast. If he could tame this spirit-devouring beast, it might be of use in the future. At that moment, due to the collapse of the ground, the wall of fire was quickly decreasing. Wuxia checked the spirit-devouring beast's location. He teleported to the front of the spirit-devouring beast. Wuxia suddenly appeared in front of the spirit-devouring beast. The spirit-devouring beast was shocked. It turned around and tried to escape. Wuxia immediately used his dragon will to suppress the spirit-devouring beast. The spirit-engulfing beast was instantly immobilized. It looked at Wuxia, its eyes filled with fear and surprise. Wuxia reached out to pick up the spirit-engulfing beast. But at that moment, the spirit-devouring beast's claws suddenly shot out. He reached out to grab Wuxia's hand. Wuxia was also shocked and quickly retracted his hand. The spirit-engulfing beast took the opportunity to turn around and flee. With a single leap, he was already more than 20 meters away. Wuxia was a little surprised. The spirit-devouring beast wasn't afraid of his dragon will. Moreover, this guy was too cunning. He clearly wasn't afraid of his dragon will, but he still pretended to be suppressed by it and didn't move at all. When he let down his guard, it suddenly attacked him. Although this fellow's level was low, and his strength was weak, but it was definitely not to be underestimated. At this moment, just as it was about to escape, Wuxia once again teleported in front of it. But at this moment, he felt the ground beneath his feet become empty. He was actually falling down. It turned out that there was a 5-meter-wide pipe under his feet. It was just that it was previously covered by a thick layer of vines. Logically speaking, even if there was nothing at the bottom, Wuxia should have been able to detect it with his dragon will. But he couldn't detect it. It seemed that this ancient dragon battlefield was indeed very strange and dangerous. Fortunately, Wuxia didn't retract his blood dragon wings. He flapped his wings and flew out of the pipe. He floated in the air, looking down at the spirit-engulfing beast that was fleeing on the ground. He wanted to steal its memory and see what it was afraid of. But he realized that he couldn't steal its memory at all. It turned out that this guy was the nemesis of soul and telekinesis. Any telekinesis or soul skills were ineffective against it. Even if Wuxia's dragon will was 10 times or 100 times stronger, it still wouldn't have any effect on it. Wuxia frowned slightly. Could it be that he couldn't even deal with this little thing? Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind. In the next moment, the long way on his body suddenly spread out. At the same time, he opened his mouth. He let out a long but domineering dragon roar. Roar. This dragon roar wasn't one of Wuxia's skills, nor was it a sound that Wuxia imitated. It was a real dragon roar. He had now become a bloodthirsty demonic dragon. Naturally, he could let out a dragon roar. Even if he was in human form, he could still let out a dragon roar without any hindrance. This dragon roar spread over a radius of tens of kilometers. The disciples of the Heavenly Gold Sect, Heavenly Wood Sect, and Heavenly Water Sect were all shocked when they heard this dragon roar. This was the ancient dragon battlefield, and the souls of those giant dragons would often let out dragon roars at night. But this was the first time that a dragon roar had suddenly appeared in broad daylight. Could it be that the souls of those giant dragons could already come out in broad daylight? Below Mo Sure, the spirit-engulfing beast heard this dragon roar and immediately prostrated on the ground subconsciously. In addition, Mo Sure's long way had spread out. The spirit-engulfing beast felt the fear that came from the bottom of its heart and began to tremble. At first, it didn't even dare to raise its head. After a while, it slowly raised its head and looked at Mo Sure. It saw that there was still a human in the sky, not a giant dragon. The spirit-engulfing beast was puzzled. Could it be that it was hallucinating? But then again it made sense. Giant dragons had been extinct for millions of years. How could a giant dragon appear here again? But the chill that came from the bottom of its heart still made it afraid to run away. At this moment, Mo Sure lowered his altitude. He asked, "Are you willing to submit to me?" Although he wasn't sure if this little guy could speak or if it could understand his words, but with such a high IQ, it should be able to understand. As expected, after Mo Sure finished speaking, the spirit-engulfing beast's eyes rolled a few times. It seemed to hesitate for a moment before it nodded. Then, it lowered its head and prostrated on the ground, as if it was surrendering. However, Mo Sure saw that this guy didn't look very obedient. He immediately warned it. "If you dare to betray me, I have 100 ways to destroy you." As he said that, he waved his right hand. A blast of cold air instantly spread out. It covered a radius of several kilometers. Even the magma that had just appeared on the ground was directly frozen. A thick layer of ice appeared on top of the magma. This was a skill that Mo Sure had acquired a long time ago, the Black Ice Dragon Breath. But because of the lack of energy in his body, he had never used it. Now that he had transformed into a bloodthirsty demon dragon, the energy in his body was much more abundant than that of an ordinary desolate hunter. That was why he dared to use it. When he was in his dragon form, he directly breathed out cold air from his mouth. When he was in his human form, he released cold air from his hands. Chapter 4:10. Although Mo Sure had tamed the spirit-engulfing beast, he knew that it was not sincere. It was just afraid of his tyrannical power, and had submitted to him temporarily. However, Mo Sure was not worried at all. As he said, although the spirit-engulfing beast was cunning, Mo Sure had the memory plunder skill. Furthermore, it wasn't just once, but an unlimited number of times. Therefore, Mo Sure only needed to plunder its memory once to know what it was up to. Therefore, Mo Sure was not worried at all. He brought the spirit-engulfing beast and flew toward the disciples of the Sky Gold Trisect. In a short while, he arrived at the disciples of the Sky Gold Trisect. On the ground, between the green vines, there was a hole that only one person could enter at a time. Mo Sure used his dragon will to probe, but he could not find anything. There were about 50 disciples of the Sky Gold Trisect, Skywood Trisect, and Skywater Trisect guarding the cave. Mo Sure also sensed that there were more than 200 disciples of the Sky Gold Trisect searching for the spirit-engulfing beast within a radius of 350 kilometers. Mo Sure looked at the spirit-engulfing beast that was panting after chasing him. He could not help but feel a little satisfied. Soon he was above the cave. Around the catacombs, the 30-odd Celestial Gold Trisect disciples had also discovered Mo Sure. At first, they were wary of Mo Sure. However, someone soon recognized Mo Sure. "Isn't this the guy who is related to Han Jianxing?" Hearing that, a few people turned on their multifunction watches. When the disciples of the Sky Gold Trisect at the entrance of the ancient dragon battlefield saw that Mo Sure was related to Han Jianxing, they had already sent Mo Sure's image to all the disciples of the metal, wood, and water sects. They warned the disciples of the other 3 sects to avoid conflict with this person. Soon, the other disciples compared Mo Sure's image with the person in person and nodded. "Yes, that's him. What is he doing here? Did he discover the cave too? While they were talking, someone discovered the spirit-engulfing beast. Damn, it's the spirit-engulfing beast. So many people have been searching for him for days, but to no avail. I didn't expect him to be here. Everyone, surround it from all sides. Don't let it escape. Everyone decided to take action. At this moment, Emosher slowly descended from the sky. The spirit-devouring beast had long since discovered the intentions of the heavenly gold 3 sects. It hurriedly came to Emosher's side and rubbed its body against Emosher's leg. Meow. The people from the celestial gold trisect exchanged glances when they saw this. Was this his? According to their usual style of doing things, they would naturally come up with a good excuse to claim the spirit-engulfing beast as their own. But not today. This spirit-engulfing beast belonged to this guy. If they were to offend this guy, it would be the same as offending Han Jianxing. Even though the celestial gold, celestial wood, and celestial water sects were the top 3 sects in the 16 prefectures of Serene Cloud, they would never want to provoke Han Jianxing. Moreover, they had yet to find out what treasures were in the catacombs. It would be unwise to provoke such a powerful being for a catacombs that they had yet to explore. However, they were unwilling to give up on the catacombs just like that. Therefore, the leader of the Celestial Gold sect disciples, a middle-aged man in his 50s, asked, "Young man, this catacombs was discovered by the Celestial Gold sect, Celestial Wood sect, and Celestial Water sect. We have been guarding here for 3 days, but we haven't found a spirit-devouring beast that can restrain a dragon's soul. Since you have a spirit-devouring beast, why don't we work together and enter the catacombs together? If we find anything, we'll each take half. What do you think?" The 3 sects were afraid of Han Jianxing's reputation, so they agreed to take half with Emosher. Otherwise, if it were anyone else, the spirit-devouring beast would have been taken away. Emosher's heart skipped a beat. He nodded and said, "That's great." Emosher's thought was that they had yet to find out what was in the catacombs. If he went down rashly, it would be very dangerous. On the other hand, with these cannon fodders, he could save a lot of trouble. As for taking half with both sides, it was naturally impossible. What's yours is mine, and what's mine is also mine. How could Emosher share it with others? The disciples of the Celestial Gold sect, Celestial Wood sect, and Celestial Water sect all heaved a sigh of relief. The Celestial Gold sect disciple in his 50s acted as if he knew Emosher well. He laughed and said, "Brother, it's our honor to work with you. Let me introduce myself. I'm Chang Baishan, a 3rd-generation disciple of the Celestial Gold sect. Young man, you seem to be on good terms with Senior Han Jianxing." Obviously, this guy wanted to use words to trick Emosher and figure out the relationship between Emosher and Han Jianxing. If their relationship was not as good as they thought, they would have nothing to worry about. Emosher heard him and said indifferently, "We just know each other." It was an understatement, but the other party could not figure it out. Chang Baishan was secretly surprised. This kid looked young and harmless, but in fact, he was very shrewd. He seemed to inadvertently turn around and give the people behind him a signal to be more vigilant. Then he turned back to Emosher and laughed. "We wanted to know Senior Han, but we didn't have the chance. Brother, it's really enviable that you know Senior Han. Next, let's discuss how to explore the catacombs. What do you think?" Emosher nodded. "Very good." Next, they discussed for about an hour about how to lock themselves up. In the end, they decided that Emosher would take the spirit-engulfing beast and 30 people would protect Emosher and the spirit-engulfing beast. They would enter the catacombs first. Emosher did not have any objections. He put the spirit-engulfing beast into the catacombs first, then jumped in himself. The other 30 people followed in one after another. Chang Baishan sent a message to the 200 or so Celestial Gold sect disciples nearby to guard the catacombs and prevent other dangers from approaching. Emosher entered the cellar and used his dragon will to explore. He saw that the catacombs were connected in all directions. There were dozens of holes that led to all directions. Each tunnel was about 2 meters in diameter. Emosher did not find anything special in these maps. He led the spirit-engulfing beast and walked slowly along one of the tunnels. The 30 or so people behind him followed Emosher, moving forward cautiously. After walking less than 20 meters, Mo Shi sensed a powerful dragon will coming toward him. This dragon will was not just one, but hundreds and thousands of dragon wills gathered together. It was so huge that even Mo Shi felt scared. Although Mo Shi's dragon will devouring skill could theoretically ignore the strength of the opponent's dragon will. However, this was not just a simple dragon will, but a huge dragon will that was mixed with the soul of a giant dragon. Chapter 4:11. There was a difference between a dragon spirit and a dragon will. A dragon will was a pure giant dragon's telekinesis, or a pure giant dragon's soul. But a dragon spirit was a dragon will that contained a huge amount of energy. So Mo Shi couldn't use dragon will to devour these dragon spirits directly. Those huge dragon spirits were coming towards Mo Shi and the others from the depths of the cave. The disciples of the Heavenly Gold sect beside Mo Shi all changed their expressions. Especially their level 1 spiritual psychic, who was much more sensitive to dragon will than ordinary people. So he was even more frightened. Soon, that huge dragon spirit had already rushed out from the depths of the cave. Mo Shi and the others looked forward. In the dark cave, a faint blue light suddenly appeared and filled the entire cave, rushing towards them like a flood. This was a dragon spirit formed by a mixture of dragon will and energy. And this wasn't the dragon spirit of one giant dragon, but the dragon spirits of hundreds and thousands of giant dragons. It swept away everything in its way, rushing towards Mo Shi and the others like breaking dried weeds and rotten wood. It was as if it wanted to tear them all to pieces in an instant. At this moment, none of them could escape. They didn't even have time to use the wormhole teleportation device. Of course, except for Mo Shi. Mo Shi could teleport out of the cave. But it wasn't necessary. When the enormous dragon spirit, which almost filled the entire cave, rushed towards Mo Shi and the others, Mo Shi and the others were shocked. While everyone else's eyes were filled with fear, the spirit-devouring beast beside Mo Shi's eyes were shining with excitement. It suddenly opened its huge mouth, and a dozen snake-like tentacles came out of its mouth. These tentacles instantly became thicker and longer. At the tip of each tentacle was a bloody mouth. These big mouths opened one after another and tried to devour the dragon spirit. Roar! 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 Suddenly, a dozen roars came from within the dragon spirit. If it was an ordinary person, they would think that the dragon spirit was about to show its power. But Mo Shi, who had become a bloodthirsty demon dragon, clearly knew that the dragon spirit was afraid. They wanted to turn around and escape. But it was too late. More than a dozen mouths suddenly stretched forward. He divided the dragon spirit into a dozen portions and ate them. Those dragon spirits struggled to escape, but those huge mouths seemed to have an extremely strong suction force that sucked those dragon spirits in. Cries of agony continued to ring out from these huge mouths. In the next instant, all of the tentacles returned to the spirit-engulfing beast's mouth. The spirit-engulfing beast burped in satisfaction. Meow. Then, it licked its lips, licked its claws, and continued forward. Everyone behind him, including Mo Shi, exclaimed in their hearts. They only knew that the spirit-engulfing beasts were the bane of dragon spirits, but they didn't think that they would be so effective. In their opinion, these dragon spirits were so powerful that they didn't even have the thought of attacking. However, in front of the spirit-engulfing beast, it was as easy as swallowing a mouthful. The disciples of the Heavenly Metal sect, Heavenly Wood sect, and Heavenly Water sect looked at each other, secretly delighted. With the help of the spirit-engulfing beasts, they no longer had to worry about the dragon spirit in the cave. Next, they continued to move forward. Along the way, they encountered another 3 dragon spirits. In the end, all of them were swallowed by the spirit-engulfing beast. Mo Shi was shocked. Just how big was the spirit-engulfing beast's body? Not only could it store so many dragon spirits, but it could also store so much dragon spirit energy. However, Mo Shi soon discovered something. After the spirit-engulfing beast swallowed the dragon spirits, it didn't store all of them in its body. Instead, there seemed to be some kind of space in its body. All of the dragon spirits had entered that space. Most of the dragon spirit's energy had also entered that space, leaving only a small portion to nourish the spirit-engulfing beast's body. This reminded Mo Shi of the spirit-engulfing beast in the Marvel movies he had seen in his previous life. The spirit-engulfing beast and the spirit-engulfing beast had the same effect. In other words, This was the author's idea to copy the spirit-engulfing beast. Of course, the author could also shamelessly say that this was a tribute. Next, they continued to go deeper into the cave. There were many forks in the cave. In the beginning, they had to discuss which path to take when they reached a fork. However, as more and more forks appeared, they couldn't be bothered to discuss any further. Most of the time they just randomly picked a path or went down whichever path they liked. Tiny claw marks could be seen on every fork in the road. There must have been some kind of creature living here in the past. It was most likely a young dragon. After wandering around the forks for more than 2 hours, they still didn't find anything. Sure and the spirit-engulfing beast would occasionally use their telekinesis to probe deeper into the cave. However, they would always be hindered by the powerful telekinesis of the dragon spirits. They didn't know how many dragon spirits there were in this cave. Sure suddenly had an idea in his mind. After the spirit-engulfing beast devoured the telekinesis of the dragon spirits, it stored them in the space inside its body. Was there a way to make it spit out the dragon spirits for him to devour in the future? However, this was not the time to think about this. They continued to explore the cave for more than an hour before they finally arrived at a huge cave. From the top to the bottom, this cave was at least 100 meters tall. At its longest point it was about 2 kilometers long. At its widest point it was more than 500 meters wide. However, such a huge cave didn't seem very spacious. On the contrary, it was very crowded. This was because this huge cave had been completely occupied by the sparkling blue dragon spirit. When these dragon spirits discovered Sure and the others' intrusion, they were all very angry. They all let out dragon roars and attacked Sure and the others. The dragon spirits' attacks were of the psychic type. Naturally, the human desolate hunters had no way of resisting such a mental attack. Even the spirit-engulfing beast and the Long Nian Sure couldn't do anything under such a powerful psychic attack. At this point, they could only rely on the spirit-engulfing beast. The spirit-engulfing beast lived up to their expectations. It stretched out its tentacles and kept probing in all directions. Every time it probed, a large number of dragon spirits would be devoured. It was as if a naughty child was constantly opening his mouth to bite off a hole in a birthday cake. At first, these dragon spirits didn't seem to care. After all, these dragon spirits were far stronger than these humans. Even if more dragon spirits were devoured, they would eventually be able to suppress these humans. However, they didn't expect the spirit-engulfing beast to be so powerful that it was beyond their imagination. Every time the spirit-engulfing beast opened its mouth, it would devour a large number of dragon spirits. Over time, all of the dragon spirits here would be devoured by the dragon spirits. Chapter 4:12. The dragon spirits wanted to devour these humans. But soon, they realized that they were wrong. Their real opponent wasn't these humans, but that inconspicuous cat. And they couldn't even fight back in front of this tiny cat. None of their attacks had any effect on this cat. Mental attacks. Ineffective. Energy attacks. Ineffective. It was as if this cat was born to counter their dragon spirits. Seeing that this inconspicuous cat had already devoured 1/3 of their dragon spirits, the dragon spirits felt a sense of danger. They didn't dare to fight against the devouring beast anymore. Instead, they went into the hundreds and thousands of caves around them. Someone suggested bringing the soul-devouring beast to kill all the dragon spirits in the caves. But it was quickly rejected by the others. Don't forget that we're here to look for treasures, not to kill these dragon spirits. That person had no choice but to give up. Then, all of them started searching for the so-called treasures in the cave. At first glance, although the cave was huge, it was empty. In terms of treasure hunting, Sure and the level 1 spiritual psyche master had a huge advantage. Sure used his dragon psyche to scan the surroundings. He didn't find anything here. The spiritual psyche master didn't find anything useful either. Next, everyone began to conduct a carpet search of the place. After all, they had taken so many risks to come here. If they concluded that there were no treasures here just by looking, none of them would be satisfied. In the end, after a search, he finally found something. A Sky Gold sect disciple who was searching suddenly stopped in his tracks. He stomped the ground under his feet. Bang bang. A different sound came from the ground. That Sky Gold sect disciple said to everyone, "It's empty." When the others heard this, they also gathered around. That disciple used a dagger and carefully scraped the ground under his feet. Soon, they found a huge stone slab that was about 20 meters long. Everyone cleaned up the dust and rocks on the stone slab and found that there were 2 huge pull tabs on the side of the stone slab. It took a lot of effort for them to pull the ring and open the huge stone slab. Looking down from here, it was another tunnel. Using dragon will to investigate, there were still many dragon spirits below. Let the spirit-devouring beast go first. The dragon spirits below seemed to be much more ferocious than the ones above. However, in the face of the spirit-engulfing beast, no matter how ferocious the dragon spirit was, there was nothing to worry about. The spirit-engulfing beast extended a dozen or so tentacles and devoured most of the dragon spirits here. The remaining dragon spirits hurriedly fled. What a joke! If he didn't run now, was he supposed to stay and wait for death? After all the dragon spirits left, everyone continued to explore the things here. This cave was about the same size as the one above. However, the cave here didn't seem so spacious. This was very strange. It was clearly the same layout, but the people above felt that it was very spacious. However, when they reached the bottom, they didn't find it spacious at all. Because in this cave, there were many things scattered on the ground. There were weapons, shields, gems, and the like. When the Heavenly Gold sect disciples saw this, their eyes lit up. There was finally something good. A Heavenly Gold sect disciple said, "Everyone, search carefully." They spread out and searched carefully on the ground and the surrounding cave walls. These weapons, shields, and gems all had one thing in common. As long as the dust was wiped off, they would become shiny and dazzling. The swords and shields were inlaid with gold and silver, not to mention the gems. It seemed that the dragon's fondness for shiny things had started since ancient times. From all the signs, this should be a giant dragon's nest. It was a mother dragon with a few baby dragons. These shiny things were like toys that the mother dragon collected for the baby dragons. These weapons inlaid with gold and silver were basically useless to the hunters. However, it didn't take long for these people to find 2 swords. On the surface, these 2 swords seemed to be similar to the other inlaid swords. However, if one used mind power to investigate, one would find that these 2 swords had traces of energy washing over them. Upon closer inspection, one would find that these 2 swords had been washed over by energy all year round. Thinking about it, it was very likely that these 2 swords could be used in battle by directly injecting energy into them. After injecting energy into them, the combat power of these 2 swords would be greatly increased. One had to know that hunters could at most release energy through energy weapons. It was basically impossible for them to add energy to other weapons. However, with these 2 swords, it was very likely that they could directly add energy to their weapons. Therefore, these 2 swords were basically treasures in the eyes of these hunters. However, to Mo Sure, they were equivalent to trash. He was already able to add energy to any part of his body long ago. He could do it with his claws, giant axes, fists, and so on. The disciples of the Heavenly Gold sect were still a little worried that Mo Sure would snatch these 2 swords from them. At that time, would they give in or not? However, seeing that Mo Sure didn't seem to have any intention of snatching these 2 swords, they were relieved. Next, 2 disciples of the Heavenly Wood sect and the Heavenly Water sect also found a few things. Mo Sure was not interested in these so-called treasures. In his mind he said, "System, sign in." To him, no treasure was as practical as the system's reward. The system's voice quickly sounded frowny face sign in successful. Sign in location, underground dragon cave. Sign in reward, dragon soul true body. He looked carefully at the skill description. Dragon soul true body. Normally hidden in the body, the dragon soul true body will be released during battle. 100-meter-tall dragon phantom will appear behind the user, and their combat power will increase 10-fold. It will also create a strong deterrent effect on the enemy. When Mo Sure saw this, he laughed inwardly. Isn't this the martial soul true body? He actually didn't think much of the dragon soul true body's increase in combat power. After all, the upper limit of his combat power was the sea dragon clone. The sea dragon clone had already reached the level of a level 1 evolved wild beast. It was equivalent to a level 1 grand desolate master. Therefore, This tenfold increase in combat power was dispensable to him. On the contrary, the strong deterrent effect made him very satisfied. Many times, when he couldn't attack, he needed to deter the other party. This Dragon Soul True Body was very impressive. Just imagine how shocking it would be if a person suddenly released a 100-meter-tall dragon phantom right in front of you. Chapter 4:13. After obtaining the Dragon Soul True Body, Mo Sure remained calm and collected as he continued to search the area. At this moment, a Sky Gold sect disciple discovered a fist-sized ball-shaped object on the ground. More than half of it had sunk into the ground. Although it was covered in a thick layer of dust, it still looked shiny. He was delighted. He had found a treasure. He immediately rushed over and picked it up. But after picking it up, he realized that it was just a shard. It was supposed to be a ball-shaped object. Now, only 1/3 of it was left. No matter how good an object was, it was worthless when it was broken into pieces. He took a closer look at it and passed it to the spiritual Psyche Master. The spiritual Psyche Master examined it carefully for a while but didn't find anything. He shook his head and said, "It's useless." The Sky Gold sect disciple smiled bitterly and cursed, "Damn it!" He threw the shard to the side. It was about to hit the wall. However, at this moment, a figure appeared and caught the item. It was none other than Mo Sure. He caught the item and was secretly delighted. When the Sky Gold sect disciple checked it, he had used his dragon consciousness to check it. The composition of this object was exactly the same as the Dragon Ball shard he had obtained before. Obviously, it was also a Dragon Ball shard. These people didn't know what it was and threw it away like trash. It was his now. Thinking of this, he kept the Dragon Ball shard. The Sky Gold sect disciple and the level 1 spiritual Psyche Master were both shocked when they saw Mo Sure's action. Did they make a mistake? Both of them were secretly regretting it. Then they thought, how could something in the underground dragon cave be ordinary? They were the ones who had found it, but they had thrown it away like trash. This kid had taken advantage of them. They were really too stupid. But they didn't want to admit that they were too stupid. They looked around and didn't see any other disciples. They pretended that nothing had happened. Most importantly, they didn't know what it was. They didn't want to fall out with someone who was related to Han Jianxing over an unknown object. Mo Sure kept the Dragon Ball shard and continued to search around. Hopefully, he could find another Dragon Ball fragment. At that time, the 3 Dragon Ball fragments would be able to form a complete Dragon Ball. However, they didn't find anything useful in the underground dragon cavern. This caused everyone to feel slightly disappointed. Xiao Chen found 2 swords in such a huge underground dragon cave. He felt somewhat dissatisfied. However, Mo Sure was already quite satisfied. 1 Dragon Ball fragment was already a great harvest. Not to mention, the spirit-engulfing beast had devoured so many dragon spirits. According to Mo Sure's knowledge, after the spirit-engulfing beast devoured the dragon spirits, it would split them into 2 parts. Part of it was energy for him to absorb. The other part was the dragon will, which was stored in the space within its body. If he could find a way to make it spit out all the dragon senses it had devoured, he might be able to raise his dragon senses by 2 or even 3 levels. This was also one of Mo Sure's great gains. At this point, there was nothing of value to be found here. However, on the walls of this huge cave, there were hundreds and thousands of holes with diameters of about 5 meters. It was not a small task to check all the hundreds and thousands of holes. These disciples of the Heavenly Gold Trisect were planning to use their advantage in numbers to turn this place upside down. However, Mo Sure didn't have such patience. There were a total of 4 districts in the ancient dragon battlefield and each district wasn't small. If they had to turn every place upside down, they would never be able to search this place for the rest of their lives. Therefore, Mo Sure decided to leave this place temporarily. At most, he would wait for these people to finish searching this place and then plunder their memories to see if there was anything good. If there wasn't, then so be it. If there was, then he would just snatch it. Therefore, Mo Sure said to the leader of the group, "Now that most of the dragon spirits in this cave have been devoured, if you want to continue searching this cave, then continue. I have other things to do, so I'll take my leave first." Hearing this, the Heavenly Gold sect disciples couldn't stop him. They could only bid farewell to Mo Sure. After that, they continued searching here while Mo Sure led the spirit-engulfing beast out of the cave. At the same time, at the entrance of the cave. Among those people, the multifunction watches of over 70 Heavenly Gold sect disciples rang at the same time. They had received a video message. They all opened the video message. It was the Great Elder of the Heavenly Gold sect. The Great Elder of the Heavenly Gold sect was furious. All Heavenly Gold sect disciples, listen up. Our Heavenly Gold sect disciple, Xiaofan, has been killed and the biggest suspect has been identified. It's this person. As he spoke, a person's portrait appeared beside him. It was Mo Sure. The Great Elder of the Heavenly Gold sect said, "This person's name is Mo Sure. If you see him, report immediately and capture him. Wait for me to come and deal with him." The Heavenly Gold sect disciples at the entrance of the cave were all stunned when they saw Mo Sure's portrait. He looks like him. Yes, he does look like him. Could it be the same person? I think it's possible. These people had only seen Mo Sure once and weren't sure. Why don't we report this to the Great Elder? A disciple suggested. Another disciple immediately retorted, "Are you stupid? We're not sure if it's him. If it's him, it'll be good. If it's not him, the Great Elder is angry now. If we report it rashly, won't we be asking for trouble?" You're right. It's a pity that we didn't record his image just now. Otherwise, we'll know if it's him. There's no signal in the catacombs. Those disciples probably haven't received the Great Elder's message. When that guy comes up, we'll take a few more photos of him and send them to the Great Elder so that he can identify him himself. That's right. If it's really that guy, we'll have provided an important clue and have made a contribution. If it's not him, then it's the Great Elder's own fault. He can't blame us. After the discussion, everyone calmly waited for Mo Sure to come up. About 5 minutes later, a figure suddenly appeared at the entrance of the cave. It was none other than Mo Sure. Everyone exchanged glances when they saw Mo Sure's elusive footwork. It meant that they shouldn't act rashly. The remaining 100 or so Heavenly Wood sect and Heavenly Water sect disciples were on the same side as the Heavenly Gold sect disciples. They were all secretly on guard but didn't act rashly. Chapter 4:14. The Heavenly Gold sect disciples exchanged glances. How could they hide their little actions from the level 7 Long Yen Sure Mo Sure? He immediately plundered the memories of one of them and quickly knew what they were thinking. It turned out that these people were already suspecting that he had killed Xiaofan. Since that was the case, there was no need for him to pretend anymore. Thinking of this, Mo Sure looked around at the 200 Heavenly Gold Tri-sect disciples around him. He sneered, "Since you want to kill me, I'm sorry." As he spoke, he used his mind. The next moment, a 100-meter-tall and 500-meter-long dragon shadow appeared behind him. Although it was just a shadow, its scales were distinct, and its eyes and nose were clear. It was as lifelike as a real dragon. The disciples of the Celestial Gold Tri-sect turned pale with fright. No matter how many strange things they had experienced in the ancient dragon battlefield, they were not as shocked as seeing a 100-meter-long dragon shadow in front of them. In front of this huge creature, they seemed so small and weak. They were so weak that they could not even withstand a single blow. Moreover, this huge creature was terrifying not only because of its size, but also because of the domineering aura it emitted. Under this domineering aura, even the strongest level 7 Desolate Hunter among them did not dare to move. This was the strength of the Dragon Soul True Body. With Mo Sure's current Dragon Soul True Body, perhaps only Desolate Hunters above level 8 could barely withstand it. Desolate Hunters below level 8 did not even have the thought of running away. There was only one word left: fear. Since this guy was left here to be slaughtered, Mo Sure naturally would not be polite. His right arm turned into a dragon claw. This time, it was not a skill. It was a real dragon claw. The next moment, the dragon claw swept out. Whoosh! An invisible force instantly flew towards the 200 people. Rip! There was a series of ripping sounds. These people did not have any intention of resisting at all. Under the tearing of the invisible force, these people were directly torn into pieces. They turned into a rain of blood that shone with a wine-red luster under the sunlight. At the same time, in Mo Shi's mind, a number had already appeared. Kill points. 1851000. Since Mo Shi had already started killing, he naturally would not miss out on anything. He teleported to the underground cavern. He used his telekinesis to investigate and found all the heavenly gold trisect disciples in the underground cavern. Then he killed them all. In his mind, the kill points increased again. Frowny face kill points. 2111000. In just a few seconds, the kill points had increased over 200. At this rate, it would not take long for it to evolve. The bloodthirsty demonic dragon's advancement was truly monstrous. Moreover, its evolution did not really matter was the level of its enemies. As long as you kill, you to kill would be counted over was kills to kill. In that case, there was no need for Mo Shi to deal with those level 10 desolate hunters. Not only were level 10 desolate hunters strong, but they were also few in number. After killing these people, he took the 2 swords that they had obtained. Although he did not need them, it was not a bad choice to give them to his subordinates. Mo Shi returned to the ground and withdrew his dragon soul true body. The spirit-engulfing beast that had been following Mo Shi was also quite frightened. It only heaved a sigh of relief when Mo Shi withdrew his dragon soul true body. It had a new understanding of this human in its heart. Previously, it only felt that this human was a little mysterious, but it did not feel that he was too special. Therefore, it thought that if there was a chance, it would run away. It even wanted to stab this human in the back when he was in danger. But now, after seeing the dragon soul true body, especially after seeing this human kill so many humans without even batting an eye, it completely gave up on this idea. It was better to stay by his side obediently. Otherwise, if this human went crazy again, it would not be able to bear it. And the most fundamental reason was that when Mo Shi released the giant dragon phantom, the spirit-engulfing beast felt a sense of familiarity with Mo Shi. This made it not as disgusted with Mo Shi as before. Because of these 2 reasons, it gave up on the idea of running away in the future. At this time, a tearing sound came from Mo Shi's back, and a pair of wings stretched out. This pair of wings was about 5 meters wide. The shape was similar to a bat's wings. However, there were several large and small holes on the wings. This was not a skill, but his real demonic dragon wings. Although on the surface, the system did not give him any other benefits for this promotion. But in fact, as he evolved into the bloodthirsty demonic dragon, he had improved in all aspects. For example, the blood dragon wings had evolved into the demonic dragon wings. The demonic dragon wings could reach 10,000 meters per second when flying at top speed. Moreover, the demonic dragon wings were more flexible than the blood dragon wings. This gave him more space and maneuverability when fighting in the air. Moreover, the demonic dragon wings also added a defensive ability. This defensive ability was very abnormal. The demonic dragon wings protected the whole body and could withstand any physical and energy attack below the level of a level 1 Grand Desolate Master. At this time, Mo Shi stopped after flying at full speed for about 100 kilometers. He summoned the Sea Dragon clone and took out the Dragon Ball fragment. Then, he threw the Dragon Ball fragment to the Sea Dragon clone. The Sea Dragon clone opened its mouth and swallowed it. In the next moment, the Sea Dragon clone's body changed again. The scales on its body were more metallic than before. Its body length also increased again, reaching a length of 1,500 meters. The thickest part of its body was more than 50 meters thick. The pair of lumps on its forehead also bulged a little. It seemed that something was about to be born from them. The pair of dragon whiskers also grew a little longer, reaching a length of more than 10 meters. He looked even more imposing than before. At this time, the Sea Dragon clone looked very excited. It kept twisting its body and waving its claws. It stretched its neck and let out an earth-shattering roar. Roar! In the entire second district, within a radius of hundreds of square kilometers, all the creatures heard this roar. They were all greatly shocked. One by one, they fell to the ground, their bodies trembling. As a result of swallowing the Dragon Ball fragment this time, the Sea Dragon clone's level also increased again. Species, Sea Dragon. Level 2 Strong Mutant Wild Beast. Ability. Expand. When Mo Shi saw this, he was secretly delighted. As long as he found another Dragon Ball fragment, would it be able to evolve into a real dragon? And looking at its size, it was not a Western dragon. It was going for the Eastern dragon god. The dragon god was an existence that was more awesome than the Western dragon. It could ride the clouds and summon the rain. Just thinking about it made him a little excited. Mosher looked around and gave an order to the sea dragon avatar. Move about freely and explore the ancient dragon battlefield to see what's going on. Chapter 4:15. The sea dragon clone was shaped like a giant dragon. It was 1,500 meters long. If such a huge body was allowed to wander around the ancient dragon battlefield, it would be too eye-catching. Therefore, Mosher let it return to a size of only 20 meters. Then, the sea dragon clone rose into the air and disappeared into the distant sky. After the sea dragon clone swallowed the dragon pearl fragment, its flying ability had greatly improved. It didn't seem to have wings, nor did it walk on clouds like in the legends. No one knew how it could fly. But it could fly, and its speed was far beyond that of ordinary creatures. This was something Mosher couldn't understand at all. Since he didn't want to think about things that he couldn't figure out, Mosher stopped thinking about it. He continued to envelop the area with a radius of 350 kilometers with his dragon consciousness. As for whether the disciples of the Skygold sect, Skywood sect, and Tianshui sect would be found out and would be hunted down by the three sects, Mosher didn't care at all. To a certain extent, he even hoped that the three sects would hunt him down. And the more people there were, the better. The more people there were, the more kill points he could obtain. This was also a slight change in his temperament after evolving into the bloodthirsty demon dragon. In the past, he was very cautious. Basically, they would hide until they were strong enough to crush their opponents. Only then would they reveal their identities. But now, because of the influence of the bloodthirsty demon dragon, his state of mind had quietly changed. He had a desire to kill and fight. But this wouldn't cause him to go berserk. Between the bloodthirsty demon dragon and going berserk, there was the word demon. But there was a big difference. Going berserk meant that he had lost his mind and couldn't control his killing. If he really went berserk, he might even kill his family and friends. But the bloodthirsty demon dragon was rational. Although it was also bloodthirsty, it would plan and kill rationally. It wouldn't hurt its friends and family, and it wouldn't lose its life for the sake of killing. Next, Mosher continued to wander in the second district. During this time, he encountered some dragon spirits, but they were all devoured by the spirit-devouring beasts. Mosher was very curious about the spirit-devouring beast. To humans, dragon spirits were extremely powerful and terrifying existences. Humans basically had no way to deal with dragon spirits, not even Grand Desolate Masters. The spirit-engulfing beast looked very weak, but it was the bane of dragon spirits. No matter how powerful the dragon spirit was, it could swallow it in one gulp. Mosher spent 3 days exploring the area with his dragon will. At the same time, the sea dragon clone also wandered around. He did a simple search of the second district. He didn't find anything else useful. Next, he headed towards the third zone. In the ancient dragon battlefield, District 3 was more dangerous than District 2. Other than having more dragon spirits, the creatures in the third division were also more powerful than those in the second division. There were even some level 8 and above mutated dire beasts in the third district. Therefore, after entering the ancient dragon battlefield, some of the desolate hunters below level 8 did not dare to enter District 3. However, Mosher did not care about this. On the surface, he looked like a level 2 desolate hunter. However, his true combat power was enough to deal with a level 7 desolate hunter. In addition, with the sea dragon clone's strength as a level 2 mutated dire beast, he could roam freely in District 3. At the same time, in the Skygold Trisect. After the Skygold sect's first elder sent out the message, no disciple responded. This made the first elder even angrier. That kid wanted to hide after killing his trusted disciple. Humph. He was too naive. He could hide for a while, but could he hide forever? Moreover, the Skygold sect's influence in the 16 prefectures of Serene Cloud was beyond imagination. In addition, the Heavenly Wood sect, Heavenly Water sect, Heavenly Fire sect, and Heavenly Earth sect were all in cahoots with the Skygold sect. It was not difficult to find a person. As long as that kid was still in the 16 prefectures of Serene Cloud, he could be found. However, something else happened in the Sky Gold sect these few days. There were more than 300 disciples who went to the ancient dragon battlefield to train. However, there were only about 220 people who could be contacted. The Sky Gold sect had a rule that all disciples in the ancient dragon battlefield had to check in every 3 hours. However, 15 hours had passed, and there was still no news from these 70 disciples. Obviously, they must have met with some mishap. They investigated and found that these 70 disciples were sent to investigate the catacombs in Zone 2. Could it be that they met with some danger in the catacombs? Therefore, the Sky Gold sect quickly sent people to the catacombs. However, they found that the catacombs were already empty. The dragon spirits from before were nowhere to be seen. However, they found many bloodstains and pieces of cloth on the ground near the catacombs. Judging from these pieces of cloth, they should be the clothes of the Sky Gold sect, Heavenly Wood sect, and Heavenly Water sect disciples. Obviously, the disciples of the 3 sects had met with a powerful attack here. They did not even have time to send out a distress signal or activate the wormhole transportation device. At the same time, the same thing happened to the Heavenly Wood sect and Heavenly Water sect. After a comprehensive analysis, everyone discovered a terrifying fact. Firstly, the murderer was still fighting against the Sky Gold sect, Heavenly Wood sect, and Heavenly Water sect. It was obvious that he was not afraid of the 3 sections. Secondly, there were more than 200 disciples from the 3 sects who came to the catacombs. However, there were no signs of fighting at the scene. In other words, these 200 people were killed in an instant. They did not even have the chance to react. To be able to kill more than 200 desolate hunters in the blink of an eye. This person's ability was probably that of a level 10 desolate hunter. To be more daring, this person's ability might have already reached the level of a grand desolate master. The 3rd elder of the Sky Gold sect, who was sent to investigate this matter, pondered for a moment before asking, which level 8 and above powerhouses have come to the ancient dragon battlefield recently? The disciples of the Sky Gold trisect who were guarding the entrance answered, the other forces are afraid of our 3 sects and do not dare to enter the ancient dragon battlefield rashly. During this period, only one super powerhouse has come to the ancient dragon battlefield. Han Jianxing, who froze 16 states with a single sword. Hearing this, everyone's expression changed slightly. They had heard of the name, froze 16 states with a single sword, since decades ago. Could it be that Han Jianxing was the murderer? However, why would he kill the disciples of the Sky Gold trisect for no reason? Could it be that he wanted to snatch the treasures in the catacombs? However, Han Jianxing was not someone who coveted treasures. He had no desires and was not interested in anything. The 3 sects had also warned their disciples many times to give way to Han Jianxing if they met him. Even if they could not, they had to give way. Hence, the disciples would not clash with Han Jianxing over a single treasure. Then who was it? You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.